Chapter 550. When Ouyang Shuo walked into the 7th Research Institute's unique stone building, he found that Liu Mo and the others were already waiting for him. "What's the matter? Are you here for a joint hearing?" Ouyang Shuo asked with a smile. In front of these researchers, Ouyang Shuo didn't put on the airs of a marquis and spoke casually. Among the dozen or so core members of the Research Institute, other than Liu Mo, the others were all old men in their 50s or 60s. As for their students and assistants, they naturally didn't have the opportunity to attend such a high-level meeting. "We've been waiting for you." Liu Mo smiled and invited Ouyang Shuo to take a seat at the head of the table. Ouyang Shuo sat down, but his eyes inadvertently glanced at a document on the tea table. He was stunned. It seemed that Liu Mo and the others really came prepared. "Tell me, what problem do you have that you need me to solve?" Ouyang Shuo knew that these researchers weren't used to beating around the bush, so he didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Liu Mo and the others laughed when they heard this. They didn't feel embarrassed. To them, efficiency was life. "Take a look." Liu Mo stood up and handed the document on the tea table to Ouyang Shuo. His expression was solemn, which was rare. Ouyang Shuo took it and flipped it open. On the first page, there was a huge title, Shanghai City's Industrial System Draft for the next 2 years. Industrial system? Ouyang Shuo asked with a smile. "That's right." Liu Mo's expression was fanatical. Ouyang Shuo nodded. The strategic plan proposed by the 7th Research Institute coincided with his thoughts. It seemed that Tai Gong was right. Shanghai City didn't lack talents, and the collective wisdom would always be stronger than his own. In the future, Ouyang Shuo had to be an appropriate hands-off boss. In reality, the industrial system wasn't an unfamiliar term. The so-called industrial system referred to the organic connection of industrial and economic activities within a certain area, as well as the overall flow of space that was formed from this. It was the industrial system. Other than the industrial production organizations, the industrial system also included the management organizations with decision-making and administrative functions, the subsidiary development and research organizations, the factories and mines that engaged in raw material mining, processing, or product repair, and the auxiliary organizations that serve the production factories and mines, such as material allocation and sales services. None of the 3 major elements could be omitted. Take the steel industry as an example. In order to form a complete iron and steel industry, it must at least include iron mines, limestone mines, iron smelting plants, steel mills, coking plants, refractory plants, machine repair plants, and other production organizations, as well as supporting organizations responsible for material procurement, transportation, sales and service, and the management organization itself. On a larger scale, there would also be subsidiary design, research, analysis, testing, information, and intelligence agencies. All of these organizations had to be closely coordinated or subordinate to each other within a system to form various flows of materials, personnel, and information. For a territory, other than the various basic mines, the other organizations would have to be dismantled into factories, such as the steel mill that was currently being built. The various departments of the government, such as the industrial department of the finance department, the construction department of the administrative department, and so on, as well as research institutions such as the No. 7 Research Institute and educational institutions such as the Southwest University China Hall, would form an intricate industrial system. In comparison, Shanghai City's current system was not enough to support an industrial system. Firstly, there were no iron mines with astonishing reserves within the territory, so the iron ore was heavily dependent on imports. As for coal, needless to say, it was extremely scarce. Just the raw materials alone had choked the neck of the territory's industry. Although in the past few months, the finance department had used a large amount of funds to purchase a large amount of iron, ore, and coal, it was only a temporary solution. Secondly, the territory's technology had only developed to the stage of steel smelting. As for the subsequent steel rolling, it was still in the exploratory stage. As for the more advanced research on coking and refractory materials, it had not even begun. As for the final machine repair, there was no way to talk about it. The only thing that was comforting was that the procurement, transportation, and related services of iron, ore, and coal were all under the jurisdiction of the finance department. Even so, there was a lack of relevant departments within the finance department, which led to extensive management. And this was only the iron and steel industry. The complete industrial system was even more complicated. It covered coal, petroleum, ferrous metals, non-ferrous metals, food, medicine, textiles, wood, chemical raw materials, chemical fibers, rubber, plastics, equipment, transportation, water, heat, and other industries. Therefore, if the territory really wanted to establish a complete industrial system, there was a long way to go. It could even be said to be an extravagant hope. After all, there were too many objective restrictions. For the researchers of the 7th Research Institute, if they could truly establish such a system in the wilderness of ancient China, it would undoubtedly be a great achievement. Apart from that, there was also a hidden sense of national pride in it. After all, the ancient people of China did not lack people with great wisdom, but they were limited by their cultural differences and missed out on the Industrial Revolution. If they could make up for this regret in the game, it would be a great achievement. Fortunately, Liu Mo and the others did not bite off more than they could chew. Ouyang Shua took a look. The so-called 2-year plan basically referred to the related industries, with the iron and steel industry as the core. There was no ambitious plan to establish a complete industrial system. Even so, there were still many difficulties. First and foremost, it required a large amount of funds. Ouyang Shua's heart trembled when he saw the final budget, and he almost froze on the spot. Logically speaking, Ouyang Shua could be considered to have seen the world. Even 100,000 gold coins was not a big deal in his eyes. But this time, Ouyang Shua was still greatly shocked. This was because Lu Mo's request for funds was a total of 2 million gold coins. This meant that for the next 2 years, they would have to invest an average of 50,000 gold coins every month. Can it be a little less? Ouyang Shua asked. This is already the most conservative budget, not a single gold coin less. Liu Mo was still as stubborn as ever. All right, Ouyang Shua smiled bitterly. When the 3 armies were completed, the territory's military expenditure would definitely double. Although Wuzhou County, Xuanzhou County, and Zhun County did not request for additional fund from the finance department, Ouyang Shua still did not dare to be optimistic about the next year's budget. In addition, Ouyang Shua's huge plan really required money everywhere, and it was not a small amount. Ouyang Shua could already imagine Yu's cold face. Chapter 551. Besides financial support, in order to coordinate with the industrial plans of the 7th Research Institute, the structure of the Southern Protectorate had to be adjusted to suit the needs of future industrial development. Ouyang Shua, on the other hand, wanted to wait until after New Year's Day to gather all the ministers and discuss it together. It was time for the current structure of the Protectorate to be replaced. After receiving Ouyang Shua's promise, Liu Mo and the others were extremely excited. At least a pot of good tea wasn't wasted, someone muttered under his breath. Before leaving the 7th Research Institute, Ouyang Shua made a request to Liu Mo. It was to ask the No. 7 Research Institute to cooperate with the Beihai shipyard to completely modify his flagship Dragonhead. One of the reasons why Liu Mo and the others wanted to establish an industrial system was to support the research and manufacturing of firearms in the territory. However, to achieve this goal, it would still take some time. Therefore, Ouyang Shua wanted to install some old cannons on the warships first. Speaking of the flagship Dragonhead, only Ouyang Shua had ridden it a few times when he led his troops to explore Jingzhou Island. For the rest of the time, it was anchored at the North Seaport. Elder Sun, on the other hand, had a special liking for Dragonhead. Every time he had a new idea, he would test it on Dragonhead, treating it as a test subject. It was reported that the current Dragonhead had changed beyond recognition. Now, Ouyang Shua suddenly wanted to modify the cannons on the flagship that he had never cared about before. No matter how one looked at it, it was unusual. Why do I feel that you have other intentions? Liu Mo glanced at Ouyang Shua and asked with uncertainty. Ouyang Shua smiled without saying a word. Don't tell me you're thinking of going out to sea? Lu Mo started gossiping. Ouyang Shuo ignored him and left the research institute. Just treat it as one thing, Ouyang Shuo said worriedly before leaving. Rest assured, Lu Mo replied gloomily. Obviously, he was a little depressed that he didn't get any gossip. Who said that researchers didn't know how to gossip? They were just passionate on the inside. After leaving the research institute, Ouyang Shuo returned to the protectorate headquarters to practice calligraphy with Binger. It was December, and the virtual classroom hadn't started its winter break yet. In the afternoon, it was time for Binger to study guoxue. Of the four major subjects, zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, the little lass's favorite was calligraphy. He had no interest in playing the zither or chess. Ouyang Shuo scolded him for not having any artistic talent. Needless to say, the little girl's talent in calligraphy was extremely strong. He had only learned calligraphy for 3 months, but his handwriting was already quite good. In his previous life, Ouyang Shuo had lived in the game for 5 years, which meant that he had spent 5 years writing calligraphy. Although it couldn't be said that the writing was very good, it could be considered to have a certain level of skill. The brother and sister, each writing a piece of calligraphy, were happy and harmonious. "Brother, are you going to marry big sister Song Jia?" While writing, the little girl suddenly raised her head and asked Ouyang Shuo this question. Ouyang Shuo was startled. He put down the brush in his hand and said with a smile, "That's right. What, are you unhappy?" The siblings were too familiar with each other. Any slight change in Bing's tone would not escape Ouyang Shuo's ears. The day before yesterday, Ouyang Shuo and Song Jia discussed the marriage. The sudden feeling of happiness knocked Song Jia over, and the news spread throughout the entire residence. The entire protectorate of the southern border had already begun to move, excitedly preparing for the marquee wedding. When the common people of Shanghai City heard the news, they were all overjoyed. In just one day, the people's hearts had risen a little. Only now did Ouyang Shuo truly understand what the marriage and children of a ruler meant to the common people in ancient times. This was not a simple personal matter. In this kind of environment, Ouyang Shuo was not surprised that the clever Binger had received the news. A little. The little girl's mood suddenly became somewhat downcast, and she looked pitiful. "Why?" Ouyang Shuo asked. "If Big Brother gets married, he won't be Bing's big brother anymore. He won't love Bing anymore." Bing mumbled. Her little appearance was truly distressing. As she grew older, the little girl no longer acted like a spoiled child around Ouyang Shuo. She began to slowly become more independent, especially after cultivating the Immaculate Heart Sutra. Her entire person had become much colder. Only now did Ouyang Shuo realize that the little girl was still the little girl from back then. Her dependence on this big brother of hers had not changed at all. Ouyang Shuo smiled bitterly. "Who did you hear this from? What kind of nonsense theory is this?" "That's what my sisters said." Binger was somewhat unconvinced. "Silly girl." Ouyang Shuo rubbed Bing's little head. If this was in the past, the little girl would have been a little unhappy. She no longer liked that her big brother treated her like a child. But this time, Binger did not refuse. Ouyang Shuo squatted down and looked at Bing. He said solemnly, "If Big Brother gets married, not only will he love you as much as before, but he will also have a sister-in-law to love you. Do you understand?" "Really?" Binger was a little uncertain. Pop! Ouyang Shuo's head popped. "What? You don't even believe Big Brother's words now?" Ouch! The little girl held her head and glared at her big brother with dissatisfaction. Her eyes flashed with a little happiness again. "Right, well, don't be lazy." Ouyang Shuo stood up. "Oh." The little girl finally became obedient. Ouyang Shuo sighed, slightly in his heart. The little girl has grown up. Her thoughts are also heavy. At this moment, Ouyang Shuo did not know what to feel. On the 20th of December, Fan Li and his party finally arrived at Shanghai City. The Black Guards of the Black Snake Guards escorted Fan Li all the way. Apart from Fan Li, there was also a famous person accompanying him. She was one of the 4 great beauties of ancient China, Shi Shi. As everyone knew, the 4 great beauties of ancient China were Shi Shi, Wang Zhaojun, Diao Chan, and Yang Yuan. They had the reputation of beauty that captivated even the birds and beasts and outshone the moon and flowers. Deep Fish was the story of Shi Shi and Huan Sha. Wild Goose was the story of Zhao Jun leaving the fortress. Moon Closing was the story of Diao Chan worshipping the moon. Bashful Flower was the story of Yang Yuan when she was drunk and looked at flowers. The legendary beauty finally appeared in the wilderness for the first time, letting the common people admire her peerless beauty. Even Ouyang Shuo was unable to conceal his curiosity. She sure was a woman who was washing gauze. Her facial features were regular, and her face was like a peach blossom. When she washed gauze by the river, the clear water reflected her charming figure, making her look even more beautiful. The fish in the water felt that she sure was too beautiful. They all sank to the bottom of the water in shame and did not dare to come out. This was the origin of Deep Fish. Chapter 552. When Ouyang Shuo saw Shi Shi in person, he had a feeling of disillusionment. When family retired, he was already a white-haired old man. It was obvious that Shi Shi, who was always by Fan Li's side, had long lost her radiance. Her peerless beauty was destined to be unable to escape the baptism of time. After the baptism of time, all that was left was calmness and kindness. Now, he could only vaguely catch a glimpse of the beauty's former glory from the gentle demeanor of the woman in front of him. Although Fan Li and his wife were no longer a perfect couple, the way they raised the table made people unconsciously feel a trace of envy. Growing old together was nothing more than this. After some small talk, Fan Li and Shi Shi agreed to officially settle down in Shanghai City. Greetings, Marquis. Fan Li bowed to Ouyang Shuo from afar, officially establishing their relationship as emperor and minister. Ouyang Shuo accepted the bow and checked Fan Li's attributes. Name, family, saint level. Title, Shang Dynasty. Spring and autumn, Chu Kingdom. Identity, official of Shanghai City. Profession, special grade merchant. Loyalty, 70 points. Commander, 85 strength, 45 intelligence, 98 politics, 95 specialty. Richest in the world. Increases territory economic index by 5. Increases territory trade prosperity by 15. Increases territory tax by 5. Increases territory merchant skill proficiency by 25. Classic. Family, 2 chapters. Evaluation. In Yu, he was family. In Qi, he was Xiao Yizi. In Wu, he was Tao Zhu. Loyalty to the country, wisdom to protect oneself, business to make a name for oneself, and fame to the world. Hegemony of the feudal vassals was passed down to future generations. As expected of the Saint of Commerce, his attributes were indeed domineering. Not only was his intelligence and politics close to maxed out, even his commander was at 85 points. He was a genius in both the pen and the sword. In particular, Fan Li's specialty, world's richest, could actually directly increase the territory's tax revenue, which was really unheard of. Fan Li was worth hundreds of thousands of gold coins just because of this. Ouyang Shuo also checked Shi Shi's attributes. Name, Shi Shi, god level. Title, the first of the 4 ancient beauties of China dynasty. Spring and autumn, state of you. Identity, Shanghai City resident. Profession, court dancer. Loyalty, 70 points. Root bone, 20 comprehension, 15 charm, 25 fortune, 8 specialty. Yarn washing. Increases the production efficiency of the textile industry by 15. Increases the production of hemp cotton by 5. Increases the popularity of the territory by 10. Evaluation. There is a woman who sells firewood in Zhuluo village in Yujuji. Because she lives in the west of the village, she is called Shi Shi, and her name is Iguang. She was as beautiful as a fairy. She would be plump if she was a little more, and she would be skinny if she was a little less. She was the #1 beauty since the beginning of time. Just like China's 10 great generals, China's 4 beauties were also defined as legendary historical figures. However, Shi Shi's personal attributes were different from those of the civil officials and generals. Her personal attributes were set to the same innate attributes as the players, with a maximum of 20 points. This was in line with the definition of a character. Shi Shi's charm actually broke through the maximum value and reached an astonishing 25 points. One could see how beautiful she was. Unfortunately, Shi Shi's source of fortune was only 8 points, which showed that her luck was shallow. Beauties were unlucky. That was probably the case. According to legend, after the fall of Wu Kingdom, Shi Shi was sunk into the river, which showed her miserable fate. In the game, Gaia chose to use the tragic love story of Fan Li and Shi Shi as the blueprint. It could be considered as a new legend for the first beauty of China. Shi Shi's specialty, yarn washing, was not to be underestimated. Apart from increasing production and efficiency, it could also increase the popularity of the territory. This was extremely rare among the specialties of historical figures. Ouyang Shuo guessed that the reason why Shi Shi's specialty could increase the popularity of the territory was probably because of her unparalleled charm and reputation as the first beauty of China. Both Fan Li and his wife were living legends. Ouyang Shuo guessed that the news of Bai Gui entering the business school had already reached Fan Li's ears. Otherwise, Fan Li would not be so straightforward. After all, Fan Li was the first saint-level character who was willing to become an official in Shanghai City. Shi Shi, on the other hand, did not say a word from beginning to end. Just as the two of them settled down in Shanghai City, Ouyang Shuo suddenly heard the sound of a system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player Shi Shi for officially settling down in Shanghai City. You have triggered the B-level storyline mission, 4 Beauties. Do you accept this storyline mission? Mission name: 4 Beauties B-level. Mission background: the 4 beauties of ancient China are Shi Shi, Wang Zhaojun, Diao Chan, and Yang Yuhuan. They have the reputation of being beautiful enough to captivate even the birds and beasts. Mission requirements: obtain the approval of at least 3 beauties and settle down in Shanghai City. Completion time: within 3 years. Mission reward: the territory will receive the title of Capital of Charm and will be rewarded with 8 points of Lord Charm. To obtain the approval of 3 of the 4 beauties within 3 years. The difficulty of this mission was not any lower than reproducing the 100 schools of thought. Unexpectedly, it was only B-level. Except, Ouyang Shuo's attitude was to let nature take its course. Just for the additional reward of charm, he wanted to give a try. Low luck and charm had become a pain in Ouyang Shuo's heart. Calculating the time, after the end of the next battle, the Western Han Dynasty would officially enter the wilderness. At that time, Wang Zhaojun, one of the 4 beauties, would appear in the wilderness. After that, it would be Jiao Chan of the Eastern Han Dynasty and Yang Yuhuan of the Tang Dynasty. If everything went smoothly, it was possible to complete this plot mission within 3 years. Long before family came, Ouyang Shuo had already made arrangements for his position. Ouyang Shuo wanted Fan Li to replace Ying Yu as the head of the finance department. As for Ying Yu, she would be the deputy head of the finance department and the director of the industrial department. In history, Fan Li had achieved great success in both being an official and doing business. Whether it was strategy, foresight, or methods, he was the best choice. Therefore, Fan Li was the best candidate for the position of the finance department. As for Ying Yu, with the expansion of the territory, it was already difficult for her to stay in the position of the finance department. Within the territory, especially in Shanghai City, the criticism of Ying Yu had never stopped. Therefore, for Ying Yu to take a step back, it was really beneficial for her. Of course, before the official appointment, Ouyang Shuo still had to have a good talk with his sworn sister. Ouyang Shuo did not choose his study as the location for their talk, but the back garden of the Protectorate Manor. His intention was very clear. This was going to be a heart-to-heart talk between brother and sister, not a conversation between a superior and subordinate. Chapter 553. In the back garden of the Protectorate of the southern border. It was midwinter, but the garden was still full of life. Hundreds of flowers vied with each other, birds sang, and the fragrance of flowers permeated the air. On the east side of the garden was a pavilion called Donglin Pavilion. It was where Ouyang Shua usually received guests. He had previously received Song Jia's parents in this pavilion, and it was a famous scenic spot in the garden. Is Big Brother looking for me related to the newly arrived family? Ingyu's thoughts were as meticulous as ever. She immediately guessed Ouyang Shua's thoughts. That's right. Ouyang Shua naturally wouldn't beat around the bush with Ingyu. He smiled and said, "How about it? Are you willing to relinquish your position as the head of the Finance Bureau?" Ingyu was the only head of the 4 bureaus who hadn't changed her position. Now, it was time to replace them with new ones. Ouyang Shua wanted to push family up as soon as possible because of the upcoming restructuring of the organization. It was extremely necessary to appoint a new head of the Finance Bureau. A little. Ingyu didn't hide anything in front of Ouyang Shua. Although Ingyu looked gentle on the outside, she was quite headstrong in her bones. Although there were endless rumors in the outside world, she remained steadfast and focused on managing the Finance Bureau. No one would be willing to hand over their authority right now. However, rationally, Ingyu knew very well in her heart that this day would come sooner or later. No matter how much Big Brother Ouyang Shua trusted her and supported her, as the territory expanded, the other officials and even the common people wouldn't let a woman sit in such a high position. Ingyu wasn't greedy for power. She just wanted to do some things. Especially after interacting more with Song Jia, Sun Xiaoye, and the others, her feminist consciousness had gradually awakened. Who says that women are inferior to men? Mu Ging and Fan Lihua. These 2 female generals had already proven this on the battlefield. Ingyu naturally wanted to reach the same level as Mu Ging and Fan Lihua in the civil service. Although Mu Lanyue, who was also a woman, was already the governor of Jinan County. But everyone knew that they were different. In this aspect, mutants had a special privilege. Ouyang Shua smiled. In a position, one must devise their own policies. Although Big Brother asked you to step down from your position as the head of the finance department, your future responsibilities will only be heavier. Don't be discouraged. As he spoke, Ouyang Shua explained his arrangements to Ingyu and continued, "You've been in charge of the Finance Bureau for a long time, so you should know that the future potential of the Industrial Division is immeasurable. The Industrial Division will be the main execution department for the territory's future industrialization strategy. It can be said to be the core of the core." When Ingyu heard that, her eyes lit up. After the new year, the structure of the entire protectorate will undergo a transformation. After you come down, first, you have to help family get into his role as soon as possible and familiarize him with the operations of the finance department. Second, I also want to hear your opinion on the adjustment of the industrial division. Don't let me down, Ouyang Shua said. Big Brother, don't worry. Ingyu was full of confidence. Then I'll wait and see. Ouyang Shua smiled. The brother and sister chatted about some other things before going their separate ways. On the 21st, the Protectorate of Southern Border officially announced the appointment and dismissal of Fan Li and Chui Ingyu. Fan Li became the head of the finance department, while Chui Ingyu became the deputy head of the finance department and the director of the industrial division. As for the former director of the industrial division, Du Xiaolan, she was sent to Shanghai City's finance department. At this point, the 2 representatives of the Shang family, Bai Gui and Fan Li, had entered the core of the territory. One was in the academy, working to spread and develop the school of thought, while the other was in the court. The Shang family of the 100 schools of thought had officially stepped onto the stage of the wilderness. The so-called Bai Gui scheme had officially completed its first step, and it had achieved fruitful results. As for the future, they could only wait and see. With Fan Li's appointment, the lineup of the heads of the 4 bureaus could be said to be luxurious. Xiao He, Wei Yang, Fan Li, and Du Ruhui were all famous officials of their generation, and even famous ministers of their generation. With such a lineup, Ouyang Shua really did not need to worry anymore. At the same time, the Protectorate also announced Su Zhe's appointment. Xiao He officially stepped down from his concurrent position as the director of the Education, Culture, and Defense Bureau, and was replaced by Su Zhe. In the next few days, Ouyang Shua began to meet with the officials, especially the four directors, to discuss the restructuring of the protectorate. Other than that, there were two other important matters. First was to prepare and review next year's budget. Without a doubt, this would be the first time the territory would prepare a budget based on the year. This also marked the formation of the territory's financial system after a long period of experimentation. The Finance Bureau had already gathered a large number of professionals to work in the various bureaus, including the finance bureaus of the various counties. Many of the government officials were players, and their backgrounds were all financial bigwigs in real life. Many of them were even former employees of the Federation. Clearly, through this game, the entire society was going through a huge reshuffle. In his previous life, Ouyang Shuo would never have thought that in this life, there would be a day where he would be able to gather a large number of scientists, entrepreneurs, and Federation employees to become their ruler. In reality, these people were all existences that he had to look up to. In the third year of Gaia, other than the normal military expenses and the daily financial expenses of the government offices, there were two other important matters. The first was naturally the industrial system plan that was just approved by the 7th Research Institute. The second was the construction of basic public utilities with the Education, Culture, and Defense Bureau as the core. In the industrial plan drawn up by Liu Mo and Company, the capital requirement for 2 years was 2 million gold coins. This amount of capital was not allocated on an average monthly basis. The earlier it was, the greater the initial capital needed. Just for the third year of Gaia, they needed at least 800,000 gold coins. As for the basic public utilities plan launched by the Education, Culture, and Defense Bureau, according to the budget made by Xiaohe in cooperation with the Finance Bureau, it was no less than 600,000 gold coins a year. Other than that, there was another large, secret financial expenditure. It was the expenditure of the intelligence agencies. In the second year of Gaia, the performance of the 3 intelligence agencies, especially the Black Snake Guards, was extremely eye-catching. Especially during the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, the use of intelligence became more prominent. Similarly, the shortcomings of the intelligence system were undoubtedly exposed. Due to the shortage of manpower and funds, the areas that the intelligence agencies could reach were limited. Therefore, in the third year of Gaia, Ouyang Shuo was determined to increase the support for the intelligence agencies. He wanted to weave a huge intelligence network that covered the entire China region within a year. Naturally, this would require a massive amount of financial support. Chapter 554. According to the usual practice, the construction of public facilities would take up the majority of the financial expenditure. However, with the establishment of the county government, this expenditure would gradually be borne by the county government. What required the Southern Border Protectorate to take the lead was to plan the official road and relay station system that covered the entire territory. Other than opening up the official road in the county, the Southern Border Protectorate would have to plan and construct the official road and relay station system between counties and bear half of the construction expenses. The first task was to completely open up the mountain road between Lianzhou County and Wuzhou County, thus realizing Shanghai City's control over Wuzhou County and Zhaoqing County. Other than that, the construction company also planned to open up a mountain road near Duanren Prefecture's Gushan County to connect the two counties on land. Currently, Shanghai City could only travel to Liizhou County by sea. Although the sea route was convenient, it was more of a trade route. It was more convenient for the people to communicate by land. Ouyang Shuo gathered all the ministers to discuss the next year's financial budget and another important matter, which was to discuss the city's municipal standards, pollution discharge standards, and planning the territory's water conservancy system. The goal was to promote Shanghai City's municipal construction experience to the entire territory. The construction of Shanghai City could be said to be a perfect example of the combination of ancient architectural arts and modern architectural theories. Not only did it retain the subtle, dignified, and elegant beauty of China's classical architecture, but it was supplemented by modern urban planning and municipal construction theories. The two perfectly complemented each other. As for the territory's water conservancy system, it was naturally to serve the territory's agriculture. In order to increase the production of crops and increase the crop's ability to resist risks, a perfect water conservancy system was naturally indispensable. The southern border's waterways were crisscrossed, but there was no shortage of water. On the contrary, there was the danger of flooding. Therefore, it was necessary to rationally plan and modify the territory's water system, as well as build reservoirs. For 4 to 5 days, Ouyang Shuo stayed in his study and did not go out at all. There was an endless stream of ministers entering and exiting the study. Sometimes, when the discussion reached a critical point, they even forgot to eat. As for discussing late into the night, that was a common occurrence. During this process, plans that concerned the territory's lifeline for the next year were produced one after another. On the 24th day of the 12th month, after Fan Li and Shi Shi, the Black Snake Guards found Master Swordsmith Ouyezi and invited him back to Shanghai City to help Ouyang Shuo forge swords. Ouyezi, from the late spring and autumn period to the early Warring States period, was the founder of China's ancient swordsmithing. In his youth, Ouyezi learned metallurgy from his uncle and started to forge swords, iron hoes, iron axes, and other tools. He was able to use, and he had a strong body and could endure hard work. Ouyezi discovered the difference between the properties of copper and iron and forged the first iron sword, Long Yuan, creating a precedent for cold weapons in China. Swords to him, to the swords, to the world. He had forged 5 treasured swords for the king of Yu, Gojian, Zhanlu, Juk, Evil Slaying, Yu Chong, and Chun Jun. He had forged 3 famous swords for the king of Chu, Dragon Abyss of 7 Stars, Tai Yi, and Gongbu. The sword was the black. The O2 of the black, the black, O sword black of troops. The sword, mountain protectors. Of the protectors had mountain O, and the protectors, and to O after people, to they. After a family, Lu County. Ouyezi had no intention of selling his swords to the royal family. After appearing in the wilderness, his only goal was to find a new place to forge swords and forge swords again. Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to give up. This was not something that could be forced. Ouyang Shuo was looking for Ouyezi mainly to ask him to reseal the Scarlet Dragon's soul sealed in the Golden Qilin seal into the Scarlet Knight sword to complete its advancement. Ouyang Shuo was not the most excited about Ouyezi's visit. It was Wang Hao. Wang Hao was the territory's first master blacksmith. He was also the division chief of the first workshop. Ouyang Shuo's Sky Demon Spear was forged by Wang Hao. To a blacksmith like Wang Hao, Ouyezi was like the ancestor of all blacksmiths. If blacksmiths, or more accurately, swordsmiths, could form a sect, then Ouyezi would be the grandmaster and representative of the sect. Therefore, Wang Hao prepared the largest and grandest swordsmithing room in the first workshop for Ouyezi's use. This swordsmithing room had been specially modified by the 7th Research Institute. Next to the swordsmithing room was a boiler that could forge steel. As a swordsmithing master, Ouyezi was very sensitive to materials. Otherwise, he would not have discovered the difference in properties between copper and iron. Therefore, how could Ouyezi be indifferent to the superior properties of iron and steel? After learning about it from Wang Hao, he was immediately fascinated by the material. Ouyang Shuo, who was following behind Ouyezi, revealed a proud smile when he saw this. He knew that for a swordsmith like Ouyezi, steel had an extraordinary charm. This time, even if Ouyang Shuo asked Ouyezi to leave, Ouyezi would not be willing. Facing Ouyezi's further inquiry, Wang Hao showed a troubled expression. Although the person in front of him was his grandmaster, the smithing technique was the territory's top secret. Even if Wang Hao was 10 times more courageous, he would not dare to reveal it to Ouyezi. Master this. Wang Hao hesitated. Seeing this, Ouyezi came to a realization. He was a swordsmithing master, so of course he knew. How could an outsider covet such a secret? Wasn't his swordsmithing technique the same? Thinking of this, Ouyezi turned around and bowed slightly to Ouyang Shuo. He said sincerely, "Marquis, please accept me. I could take a look at the profoundness of this material." Oyezi had a feeling that with this material, he would have a new inspiration for swordsmithing. In the future, it would not be impossible for him to forge a divine weapon like the seven-star dragon well. It could even be said that he might be able to touch the sacred weapon that no one had reached yet. Since that was the case, why would Oyezi continue to search for a place to forge swords? Wasn't Shanghai City the best place to forge swords? As for his previous bold words, it was not a big deal for Oyezi to go back on his words. A swordsmithing master was a sword fanatic. Since he was a sword fanatic, he did not need to care about the ways of the world. Only then would he be able to focus on one thing. Ouyang Shuo said with a smile, "It is a great fortune for the territory that master can settle in Shanghai City." Naturally, he did not mention Oyezi's bold words. Chapter 555. At this moment, a system announcement sounded in Ouyang Shuo's ears. System announcement. Congratulations to player, not saying that you have no clothes. Godly blacksmith Oyezi has settled in Shanghai City in the glorious wilderness. His territory title, Craftsman Paradise, has been automatically upgraded to Craftsman Holy Land. Congratulations! As soon as the announcement was made, the entire China region was once again shocked. The players did not expect that the elusive Oyezi would be found in Shanghai City and even be allowed to settle there. As expected of the #1 territory in the China region. How domineering! Praises and praises could be heard incessantly on the national channel. Of course, there was jealousy, ridicule, and jealousy. In short, all sorts of discordant voices could not be avoided. Ouyang Shuo naturally did not pay attention to this. Instead, he checked the attributes of the Craftsman Holy Land. Title: Craftsman Holy Land, Godly Rank. Attribute: Territory popularity increased by 20, skill proficiency of territory talents increased by 20, success rate of territory talents breaking through bottlenecks increased by 20, attraction rate of territory talents increased by 45. Characteristics: Soul of Craftsman, 25% buff to Craftsman. Evaluation: Ultimate Craftsman title cannot be upgraded anymore compared to the Craftsman Paradise, the Craftsman Holy Land. His attributes had almost doubled. A god-level title was indeed extraordinary. With the support of this title and the super strong support of the 100 Holy Lands, Ouyang Shuo was more and more confident in Lu Mo's industrial plan. After all, the foundation of industrial development was a large number of skilled craftsmen. Seeing that Oyezi could not wait for the steel, Ouyang Shuo smiled, left the Scarlet Knight's sword and the Qilin seal, and then turned to leave. Back at the Protectorate headquarters, Ouyang Shuo met with a person alone. It was Chamberlain of Dependencies, Zhang Yi. Like the Secretary's office, the Chamberlain of Dependencies operated independently of the 4 bureaus and reported directly to Ouyang Shuo. Since its establishment, its overall structure had been perfected and was ready to go. According to Zhang Yi, they were already sharpening their swords and waiting for the Marquis's orders. History was always strikingly similar. During the Warring States period, after Shang Yang's reforms, Qin became the leader of the 7 warring states. The 6 countries east of Tongwan were at a loss in the face of Qin's aggressiveness. Luoyang Su Qin proposed a joint strategy to resist Qin. The basis of the vertical strategy was the geographical advantage formed by the alliance of the 6 countries. In 333 BC, Su Qin's lobbying was successful. The envoys of the 6 states met at the river and formed an anti-Qin alliance. Su Qin served as the commander. The 6 states agreed on a joint action plan to resist Qin. The 6 states, whose territories were connected and whose interests were related, relied on their combined strength to survive in the face of the powerful Qin for 100 years. Later, King Huiyuan used Zhang Yi's strategy to break Su Qin's strategy. The origin of vertical and horizontal was said to be because north-south was called vertical and east-west was called horizontal. The state of Qin was located in the west, and the 6 states were located in the east. The alliance of the 6 states was from the north to the south, so it was called the joint vertical. The alliance of the 6 states with Qin was from the east to the west, so it was called the joint horizontal. In the wilderness, Shanghai City conquered Qiyu City and flattened the Taiping heavenly kingdom, becoming unprecedentedly powerful. This immediately caused the lords of the surrounding provinces to feel uneasy, and they all established cities. The four great provinces had already become connected. Shanghai City's current predicament was very similar to the historical Qin state. Precisely because of this, Zhang Yi needed to come out and show his skills. Of course, in the wilderness, because of the uncertainty of the lords of the players, to break this joint horizontal was probably many times more difficult than breaking the joint vertical of the 6 states in history. Ouyang Shuo did not expect Zhang Yi to break it in one go. Moreover, Ouyang Shuo did not have the patience to be like the historical Qin state and be in a stalemate with the 6 states for decades, or even centuries. If he really waited that long, it would be too late. This marquis hopes that the Chamberlain of Dependencies can open a gap in the encirclement of the 4 provinces. Ouyang Shuo looked down at Zhang Yi and stated his request. Zhang Yi nodded and said, "This official has some understanding of the 4 great cities. Comparing them to the historical 6 states, it is not difficult to find that they all have their own weaknesses." "Oh, I would like to hear the details." Ouyang Shuo was full of interest. To be honest, Ouyang Shuo had never thought deeply about his 4 neighbors. As for Zhang Yi, he had probably started to think about these problems the day he entered the Chamberlain of Dependencies. Due to this, Ouyang Shuo really wanted to hear Zhang Yi's opinion. The Lingnan city-state in the east had a grudge with Shanghai City in the Battle of Zhaoqing. It was this battle that made the feudal lords of the Southridge province truly feel the threat of Shanghai City. They came to their senses and formed the first city-state in the wilderness, Zhang Yi said. If that is the case, then they should be the most united. Where is their weakness? Ouyang Shuo asked. The weakness is on Ruanping, Zhang Yi answered. Ruanping. Ouyang Shuo did not understand. Yes, Zhang Yi nodded. In the Battle of Zhaoqing, the previous leader of the Lingnan city-state, the leader of the Southern Alliance, Buddha He, quietly left. This gave Ruanping a chance to take over. This official sees that Ruanping is ambitious, but he has great ambitions but little talent. He also has a grudge against the Marquis. Zhang Yi's intelligence work was done well. Before this, when the city-state was just being formed, the lords were still united. Once the situation stabilizes, Ruanping will definitely want to usurp even more power within the city. This will create a grudge and estrangement with the lords who were previously close to Buddha He's faction. I'm afraid that a fierce battle between the old and the new factions will take place within the city. Buddha He is already retired. How can his trusted aides win against Ruanping? Ouyang Shuo asked in response. No matter how bad Ruanping was, he was a young master of a prestigious family. Compared to the other lords, Ruanping's scheming, shrewdness, connections, and means were not just a little bit higher. It would not be difficult to take care of Buddha He's old subordinates. The wilderness was so merciless. Who would continue to advance under the banner of a loser? Ouyang Shuo was deeply suspicious of this. If there are no outside forces interfering, as the Marquis says, there is not much to see. Zhang Yi suddenly had an unfathomable expression. He folded his hands and said, Marquis, please mobilize the power of the Black Snake Guards in Lingnan Province and cooperate with the Chamberlain of Dependencies to put on a good show in Lingnan City. Ouyang Shuo's eyes lit up when he heard this. He said with a smile, As you say, I will personally coordinate with the Black Snake Guards and ensure that we cooperate. Thank you, Marquis. Zhang Yi was overjoyed. Chapter 556. Then what about the South State? Where is its weakness? Ouyang Shuo asked. The leader of the South State, south of rosy clouds, had the support of the sage strategist Zhang Liang, so his position was secure. Adding on the prestige he had established in the Battle of Guilin, no one would be able to shake his position in a short period of time. Even if the Chamberlain of Dependencies and the Black Snake Guards wanted to play any tricks, Zhang Liang would easily resolve them. Zhang Yi was still calm, saying, The weakness of the South State is Zhang Liang. Oh, Ouyang Shuo was surprised again. Zhang Yi's words were really shocking. Marquis, think about it. If your ally has a sage strategist assisting you, how would you feel? Zhang Yi did not answer directly, but threw out a multiple-choice question. If they really followed Ouyang Shua's train of thought, then needless to say, they would think of a way to snatch it. The problem was that the ones facing this predicament were ordinary lords. Ouyang Shua thought for a while, and followed the train of thought of ordinary lords, replying, "You mean that the other members of the South Xiang state will be wary of Rosy Cloud City because of Zhang Liang's existence?" Exactly. Zhang Yi nodded. In history, Liu Bang stood out from the other feudal lords because of Zhang Liang's plan. In the Battle of Guilin County, Rosy Cloud City did not obtain any substantial benefits. Instead, it showed how ambitious south of Rosy Clouds is. An ambitious lord, paired with a saint-level tactician, will definitely be able to defeat him. I'm afraid that even without us stirring things up, there will be undercurrents in the South Xiang state. With Zhang Liang's intelligence, he will naturally notice this problem. As long as he constantly guides the South Xiang state to unite against external enemies and achieve a win-win situation. Won't this problem be solved by itself? Ouyang Shua asked. When both sides have the same interests, a problem is no longer a problem. Marquis is wise. Hearing this, Zhang Yi was deeply impressed by the Marquis's keen knowledge. Then he changed the topic, saying, "But Marquis, think carefully about what kind of existences are around the South Xiang province." Ouyang Shua heard this and recalled the geography of the southern border. To the north of Xiangnan province was Lord Chuanshin's Jingshu province. To the east was Black Lion City's North Sichuan province. To the south were Lingnan province and South Sichuan province. To the west were North Sichuan province and Fengqingyang Shu province. The Jingshu province in the north and the Shu region in the northwest were the traditional territories of the Yanhuang Alliance. Now that they had enmity with the Mountain and Sea Alliance, the Rosy Cloud City did not dare to offend the Yanhuang Alliance. Lingnan City-State in the south and Chuanbei City-State in the west were the current allies of Xiangnan City-State, and there was no reason for them to attack these two places. As for the South River Province, where Shanghai City was located, with Han Xian leading the Hidden Leopard Army to guard the Withered Fortress, even if Rosy Cloud City had the guts, they wouldn't dare to cross the border. The only possibility was the North Sichuan Province in the east. First of all, the North Sichuan Province was under the control of the League of Mountains and Seas, so they had no qualms about attacking it. Secondly, Black Lion City's influence in North Sichuan Province was limited. It was not strong enough to rule over an area. From the looks of it, North Sichuan Province was Rosy Cloud City's chance. Black Lion City is in trouble. Ouyang Shua's expression was solemn. It's a crisis, but it's also an opportunity. Zhang Yi said, if the Siege Lion Lord is smart enough, he can use the invasion of Xiangnan City-State to truly consolidate the power of North Sichuan Province. With the conflict between the two provinces and the secret support of Shanghai City, it won't be easy for Rosy Cloud City to achieve anything. Ouyang Shua understood and said with a smile, "You mean to say that the focus of the Honglu Temple to deal with Xiangnan City-State is not in Xiangnan, but in Chuanbei?" Marquis is wise. Zhang Yi bowed again. That's good. Let's take it as a plan for the future. Ouyang Shua nodded, acknowledging Zhang Yi's strategy. However, an unfathomable look flashed across his eyes. Seeing this, Zhang Yi didn't dare to say more. Ouyang Shua didn't mention it and asked, "What about North Sichuan City? Tell me your opinion." Around the territory, the area that made Ouyang Shua the most uncomfortable was the north. There was no other reason. It was because there were two provinces in the north that joined hands to govern Shanghai City. The Battle of Guilin undoubtedly proved that the two provinces cooperated very well and were very close. In addition, Guilin Commandery was a communication hub, which made it even more uncomfortable. With Zhang Liang's brilliance, he would only strengthen the cooperation between the two provinces and not cause any additional conflicts. Therefore, it was very difficult to drive a wedge between the two city-states. Zhang, he had his own opinion about this. He said with a smile, "The weakness of North Sichuan City is the difference in the interests of the North and the South. They can't truly converge. What do you mean? Ouyang Shuo asked. North Sichuan province is bordered by the land of Shu to the north and Shanghai City to the south. On both the north and south sides, there is a vast border. For the lords of the northern part of North Sichuan province, compared to Shanghai City, the land of Shu is a greater threat, Zhang Yi said. In the Battle of Guilin, the lords of the northern part of North Sichuan province did not participate in the battle. This is proof. The land of Shu? You mean Swordsman City? Ouyang Shuo asked again. That's right. Fengqingyang Swordsman City is located in the southernmost part of the land of Shu, only a short distance away from North Sichuan province. Zhang Yi replied. Originally, the land of Shu was very large, larger than 2 North Sichuan province. Swordsman City could expand into the land of Shu. Unfortunately, the land of Shu is densely covered with forests and the roads are rugged and steep. It is easy to defend and difficult to attack. Therefore, it is very difficult for Swordsman City to expand into the land of Shu. Compared to the interior of Shu that is difficult to conquer, the North Sichuan province that is right in front of us is naturally a better choice for Swordsman City. I see. Ouyang Shuo suddenly understood. It seems that Swordsman City has done us a great favor. After Zhang Yi's reminder, Ouyang Shuo thought more and further. Within the Yellow Flame Alliance, compared to Di Chun and the others, Fengqingyang was the one who was least interested in hegemony. Unfortunately, Fengqingyang was the descendant of an aristocratic family and shouldered the heavy responsibility of revitalizing his family. Even if he did not want to fight for hegemony, he had to expand his territory appropriately. Otherwise, if Di Chun and the others were in charge of Swordsman City, the northern part of North Sichuan province would not be peaceful. Do you think it is possible for us to form a secret alliance with the lords of the northern part of North Sichuan province? Ouyang Shuo glanced at Zhang Yi and asked with a smile. Marquis, they are exactly what I am looking forward to. They are the basis to pry open the momentum of the alliance. Zhang Yi's expression was calm as he said, as long as we move them, we can disrupt the North Sichuan city-state and then provoke the South Hunan city-state. In this way, the enemy's momentum will be broken. Ouyang Shuo listened but did not comment. Chapter 557. Let's talk about city-state of Yunnan. Where are its weaknesses? Ouyang Shuo asked. More than half of Yunnan province's borders were national borders. To the north was Tubo, which had not been opened yet, and Shu, which was easy to defend and hard to attack. The only threat was Lingxi City and Shanghai City. It could be said that city-state of Yunnan had no worries. Of course, there were advantages and disadvantages. The superior geographical position also restricted the expansion of city-state of Yunnan. Therefore, since the establishment of Yunnan city-state, it pursued a conservative local defense strategy. Even if they allied with the 3 city-states, it was also for the strategic purpose of defense. As the saying goes, having no desires is firm. To deal with city-state of Yunnan, there seemed to be no other way but to attack. At that time, Ouyang Shuo had already decided to focus the attack on the South Cloud province in the west. City-state of Yunnan has 2 weaknesses. Zhang Yi continued to speak. First, within the city, there is no strong leader like Ruan Ping or official Shiman. Second, city-state of Yunnan is not geographically connected to the other 3 cities. It is isolated outside of the alliance. Ouyang Shuo noticed that Zhang Yi was talking about weaknesses and not flaws. Clearly, in Zhang Yi's view, city-state of Yunnan was a hard bone to chew. I don't think these 2 points are city-state's weaknesses. Ouyang Shuo shook his head. He had a different way of dealing with this. Looking at it alone, these 2 points are indeed hidden dangers. But when the 2 are combined, the weaknesses become strengths. A city-state isolated outside of the alliance needs mediocre people to govern it. Only in this way can they maintain their internal stability and not change their inherent strategy. Marquis is wise. Zhang Yi sighed in admiration again. Honglu Temple just needs to pay attention to city-state of Yunnan. Leave the specific strategy to Lingxi City. We do not need to overstep our authority. Ouyang Shuo instructed. Ouyang Shuo still had to give his ally, Bai Hua, the respect he deserved. No matter what, city-state of Yunnan was connected to city-state of Lingxi City's Kunming County. As for how to deal with city-state of Yunnan, Bai Hua probably had a plan in mind. Therefore, city-state of Shanghai could not directly pass city-state of Lingxi City and operate in Yunnan province. That would be contrary to city-state of Lingxi City's intentions and put Bai Hua in a difficult position. At most, the two sides would act together. As for the Dragon Stallion Army Station in the west, they were there to gather intelligence and to coordinate with Spirit Rhino City to launch an assault on the city of Yunnan. Speaking of which, the two sides would definitely disagree on how to deal with city-state of Yunnan. It was reported that there were already some discordant voices within Lingxi City regarding the fact that Shanghai City had occupied Jun and County and had taken over 90,000 prisoners of war from the Western Army of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. After all, from Lingxi City's point of view, they had sacrificed a lot to stop the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom's West Army. In the end, it seemed like there was no gain other than sacrifice. On the other hand, Shanghai City had plucked all the fruits of their labor with a single ambush. Wasn't that a little too domineering? If not for the fact that Luo Shixin's division had actively cooperated with Lingxi City to swiftly take down Kunming County, giving Lingxi City a safe haven, the dissatisfaction within Lingxi City would have been even more intense. If not for Luo Shixin's division actively cooperating with city-state of Lingxi City and taking over Kunming County, the dissatisfaction in city-state would have been even stronger. Although Ouyang Shuo had a clear conscience, it was enough to arouse his vigilance. In history, there were too many allies who eventually parted ways because of their interests. Although Ouyang Shuo believed that he and Bai Hua could control their differences, the two of them were powerless to stop the thoughts and demands of their subordinates. White Birch was not Mulan Moon, and Lingxi City was not Mulan County. It was impossible for it to be directly annexed to the Mountain Sea territory. Bai Hua was not Mulan Yu, and city-state of Lingxi was not Mulan County. It could even be said that the Breeze Pavilion had a conflict of interest with it. It would be a big problem to deal with it. I should have a good talk with Bai Hua at next year's gathering. Ouyang Shuo sighed in his heart. Zhang Yi nodded and continued. Other than the four major cities, there is actually a fifth person who has always been on the periphery, eyeing Shanghai City covetously, just like the state of Qi during the Warring States period. You mean the Yin-Huang Alliance? Ouyang Shuo asked. To Shanghai City, the Yin-Huang Alliance is an existence that cannot be ignored for a long time. Especially with the expansion of their territory, the conflict between the two sides will spread from indirect military conflicts to direct conflicts in the wilderness. As long as Shanghai City breaks through the blockade of the four major cities, they will directly clash with Shu and Jingshu province. Therefore, I believe that the Yin-Huang Alliance will definitely not sit idly by and watch Shanghai City break through. Zhang Yi's words were not alarmist. Previously, when Shanghai City was determined to unify the Lianzhou Basin, the Yin-Huang Alliance had interfered, allying with the four major cities to firmly suppress the expansion of Shanghai City was an inevitable choice for the Yin-Huang Alliance. From the looks of it, the Shanghai Alliance and the Yin-Huang Alliance were about to have a good fight. It was unknown who would have the last laugh. Passively counterattacking was not Ouyang Shuo's style. Since we are aware of the threat of the Yin-Huang Alliance, it is time for the Chamberlain of Dependencies to take the initiative. Compared to us, the members of the Yin-Huang Alliance also have trouble in their own territories. Ouyang Shuo smiled slightly. There is no reason to let them develop leisurely and have the leisure to care about our matters. Understood. Zhang Yi nodded. Focus on Azura City and Luoya City. Try to stir up their relationship. Ouyang Shuo said. Military kill Ripper's Azura City and Wandering Huan's Luoya City belong to the same province. With Xianyang City and Chang and City holding them back, it would be unreasonable not to touch them. Speaking of which, in the unfinished war in the Central Plains, compared to the low-profile military kill Ripper, Wandering Huan was in the limelight. Who knew how Army kill Ripper, who had always been competitive, would feel about this? As the new year approached, the alliance of War Wolf and Tyrant Hero completely wiped out the Huang Chao army. Among the 4 rebel armies, only Chun Sheng's Zhang Chu regime still stood in the wilderness. To Lord Chunshin and Wandering Huan, this was awkward. Helplessly, they did not have enough military strength. No matter how awkward it was, they did not dare to act rashly. Even Di Chun, seeing that Gaia's 3 years were about to arrive, temporarily gave up on attacking Zhang Chu's territory. Everything would have to wait until after the new year. Chapter 558. Unfortunately, the cold winter in the north had arrived as scheduled. There was not much time left for Lord Chunshin and Di Chun. If they continued to delay, they would not be able to use their troops in the middle of winter in the north. They could only stop. In that case, Zhang Chu Zhengquan would be able to escape. Who knew what kind of changes would occur in the wilderness next year because of this? At the end of the conversation, Ouyang Shuo looked at Zhang Yi and said half jokingly and half seriously, "Next year, the Chamberlain of Dependencies will step onto the stage. This Marquis looks forward to it. I will not disappoint the Marquis." Zhang Yi's solemn promise was filled with seriousness and passion. On the December 29th of the second year of Gaia, a system announcement resounded throughout the China server. System announcement. The first expansion pack, Rise Up, has officially been released for 1 year. On the occasion of the first anniversary, we will conduct a centralized count of the contributions made by the various lords in the annihilation of the rebel army, and give out corresponding rewards as encouragement. As for the specific content, please check it out yourself. When the announcement came out, the players were in an uproar. It was only then that everyone realized that, apart from the immediate reward for annihilating the peasant rebels, there was also a chance for a year-end bonus. How could other players, especially adventure-type players, not be envious? The reward was based on the battle map. Gaia would convert the contributions of the various feudal lords in attacking the 4 major rebel armies into contribution points. After tabulating them, they would convert them into merit points as the final reward. At the same time, the top 3 contribution points would also receive a special reward. The special reward will be given directly to the individual and will not be made public. All they knew was that the prizes for the champion, runner-up, and third place would be reduced by 1 level. Ouyang Shuo clicked on the year-end bonus, ranking, and checked it carefully. Rank, name, merit points, first place. Don't say you have no clothes, 85,000 points, second place. Emperor Dust, 75,000 points, third place. Wolf Warrior, 68,000 points, fourth place. Dominating Heroes, 55,000 points, fifth place. White Birch, 30,000 points, sixth place. Lord Chunshin, 27,000 points, seventh place. Wandering Fantasy, 25,000 points, eighth place. Overturning the Heavens and Earth, 20,009th place. Tin-tailed Dark Fox, 18,000 points, 10th place. Jade Beak, 15,000 points without any suspense. Shanghai City almost single-handedly annihilated the entire Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. Ouyang Shuo's contribution once again rose to the top, looking down on everyone. The reward of 85,000 merit points was equivalent to the reward of a single battle. Following closely behind him was Di Chun, who had first led the Allied forces in the capital to destroy the Yellow Turban. If Di Chun hadn't been leading the Allied forces, his merit points would have surpassed Ouyang Shuo's due to his high efficiency in killing the Yellow Turban. The one ranked third was none other than the War Wolf, who had led the Allied forces to attack Huang Chao's rebel army twice. In the end, he joined forces with Xiong Ba and annihilated the great Qi kingdom established by Huang Chao. As for War Wolf's ally, Xiong Ba, he was ranked fourth. As for Bai Hua, Lord Chunshin, and Piaoling Huan, who had yet to complete their task, they had taken the 5th to 7th positions. After the 7th person, there were no more Yan Huang Alliance or Mountain and Sea Alliance members. Whether it was Feng Qiuhuang, Dragon-Seeking Cave, Siege Lion, Military Killer, Feng Qingyang, or the others, they had all been spectators in the campaign to annihilate the peasant rebel army. The last 3 places on the list were occupied by 3 dark horses. Ouyang Shua estimated that these 3 should be members of Di Chen's allied forces, or the War Wolf or Xiongba's allied forces. Based on the list alone, the Mountain and Sea Alliance had undoubtedly lost. Only Ouyang Shua and Bai Hua were on the list. However, the Yin Huang Alliance had 5 people on the list, occupying half of the list. Apart from that, the last 3 people could also be considered allies of the Yin Huang Alliance. It was not an exaggeration to say that they had been utterly defeated. If Ouyang Shua hadn't taken the first place, the Alliance of Mountains and Seas would have lost all its face without a fig leaf. Before this, Ouyang Shua had a premonition. Through the leaderboard, the weakness of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas was displayed to the entire Chinese server mercilessly. Ouyang Shua could only let out a long sigh. At this moment, a system notification sounded in Ouyang Shua's ears. System notification. Congratulations to player, not saying you have no clothes. In the second year of Gaia's campaign to annihilate the peasant rebel army, you have been awarded a special reward. Please choose. Immediately, a virtual screen appeared in front of Ouyang Shua, listing out the list of 10 rewards. 1 merit points awarded 20,000 points. 2 1x special building blueprint. 3 50,000 gold coins. 4 1x genuine king-grade cultivation technique. 5 1x additional chance to use a hidden building. 6 1x technical manual. 7 1x special item. 8 1x dark gold grade equipment. 9 awarded 100,000 reputation points. 10 1x random reward. Seeing such a generous reward, Ouyang Shua drooled. Those who did not know better would have thought that this was a small-scale system auction. Since when did the great god Gaia become so generous? Ouyang Shua was still immersed in the rewards when he suddenly heard a system notification. System notification. Player can choose 3 of them as the final reward. Please choose. Ouyang Shua's face immediately darkened. Great god Gaia, do you have to trick me like that? Say so earlier. You made me happy for nothing. Character was a curse after all. From the looks of it, the second place could choose 2, while the third place could only choose 1. He just didn't know if the 10 rewards that they listed were the same or not. Ouyang Shua had to think carefully about choosing 3 out of 10. Can I use the elimination method? Ouyang Shua asked. Yes. Yes, gold coins and reputation points will be eliminated first. It was not easy to get a chance at the lottery, so how could Ouyang Shua choose some mundane items? Immediately, items 3 and 9 disappeared from the screen in front of Ouyang Shua. King-grade cultivation technique and dark gold equipment are too low, so they will be eliminated as well. Ouyang Shua was not afraid of being ganged up on by other players when he said this. Regardless of which one it was a top-notch existence to adventure-type players. But in Ouyang Shua's eyes, it was an inferior existence. It was really infuriating to compare oneself with others. Fortunately, Gaia didn't have these feelings. With a swoosh, item 4 and item 8 also disappeared. There were only 6 remaining, and he had to choose 1 out of 2. Chapter 559. Then exclude items 7 and 10, Ouyang Shua said. Be it special items or random rewards, there was too much randomness. It did not match Ouyang Shua's style. As a lord, he prioritized stability over anything else. He did not have the mentality of a gambler. Out of the remaining 4 options, item 2 was a special building, while item 5 was an additional chance to use a hidden building. These 2 options were mandatory. There was no need to mention special buildings. Every one of them was extremely valuable. As for the chance to use a hidden building, Ouyang Shua could use it on the hiring hall or the silver prayer tower. The one with the highest price-to-performance ratio was naturally the hiring hall. This also meant that Ouyang Shua could use the hiring hall twice in the next 2 days. He was looking forward to seeing what kind of historical talents he would summon these 2 times. Finally, between merit points and the manual, Ouyang Shua chose the merit points as a reward. Although 20,000 merit points was not a lot, Ouyang Shuo could not miss any opportunity to obtain merit points if he wanted to advance to Duke as soon as possible. As for the manual, he could only reluctantly part with it. After Ouyang Shuo made his choice, the system notification sounded right on time. System notification. Congratulations to player who says that has no clothes. In the second year of Gaia's annihilation of the Wilderness Peasant Rebellion, you have contributed greatly. You are hereby rewarded with 20,000 merit points, a special building blueprint, and an additional chance to use a hidden building. As encouragement, congratulations, player. With a whoosh, a building blueprint appeared in Ouyang Shuo's hand. Nautical Lighthouse, a building located on the coast, harbor, or river. It is used to guide ships. Construction requirements. Nautical Lighthouse Building Blueprint. 5,000 units of wood, 10,000 units of green bricks, 5,000 units of stone. Construction time, 5 days. In the 10th year of Yongle of the Ming Dynasty, the government built a mound that was 1,000 feet wide and more than 300 feet tall on the beach southeast of the Lehiku of the Yangtze River. Smoke rose from it during the day, and a fire was lit at night to guide ships in and out of the Yangtze River. This was the first time in China that the government funded the construction of a navigation beacon. That period was also when Zheng He sailed the western seas. It could be said to be the pinnacle of the Ming Dynasty's maritime history. A lighthouse's source of light was known as a lamp. It had long been lit by an open flame. The Ming Dynasty's fireworks lighthouse was built in such a manner. In the world's maritime history, the method of lighting an open flame was later replaced by candles. After that, he also used whale oil, rapeseed oil, lard, kerosene, and other fuels. Finally, it was the modern electric lighthouse. In addition to fuel, one of the signs of modernization in Western lighthouses was the use of parabolic reflector systems. Thus, the range of the lighthouse was greatly increased. Modern electric lighthouses have a range of about 30 nautical miles, and the intensity of light can reach hundreds of millions of candles. As a special building, the nautical lighthouse naturally had its own uniqueness. If it was just an ordinary lighthouse, Shanghai City could have designed and built it themselves. The most special and valuable one was the nautical lighthouse. According to the blueprints, as long as the nautical lighthouse was completed, Gaia will automatically repair the missing parts of the lamp, so that its range and brightness can reach more than 80% of modern lighthouses. This was already an extremely domineering existence in a voyage with an ancient setting. With the nautical lighthouse, the safety of Shanghai City's navy, as well as the merchant ships traveling to and from the territory, would be greatly enhanced. Ouyang Shuo had already planned to build a series of nautical lighthouses in the North Sea Bay and even further. This was tantamount to a declaration of sovereignty. Wherever the nautical lighthouse was built, it would be the territory of Shanghai City. Shanghai City Recruitment Hall. Ouyang Shuo once again walked into the recruitment hall and pressed his palm on the depression. A series of system notifications sounded. System notification. Congratulations to player who says that nothing has opened the recruitment hall. It has been detected that you have an additional chance to use a hidden building. The recruitment hall meets the requirements. Do you want to use this chance? Use it. Ouyang Shuo was still hoping to use this opportunity to recruit a Navy general. System notification. Congratulations to player who says that nothing has obtained an additional chance to recruit a special talent and an additional chance to recruit a historical talent. Do you want to recruit? Historical talent recruitment. Ouyang Shuo no longer cared about special talents. There was no point in recruiting them. He had always entrusted his secretary, Lang by Nanpu, to recruit special talents at a fixed time every month. System notification. Congratulations to player who says that nothing has successfully recruited an emperor-level historical figure, Zhang Tingyu, through the recruitment hall. 100 gold coins are automatically deducted. A white light flashed, and a middle-aged scholar walked out of the teleportation array. Hung Chun greets the Lord. This person's face was engraved, especially his eyes, which were sharp and wise, making people feel intimidated at first glance. The most interesting thing was that this person had a long braid. There was no doubt that this was a minister from the Qing dynasty. In fact, Ouyang Shuo was not unfamiliar with Zhang Tingyu. In fact, he admired him greatly. Thus, although he did not recruit the Navy general he wanted, Ouyang Shuo was still very excited. Zhang Tingyu, courtesy name Hung Chun Yinzhai, was from Tong City, Anhui Province, the second son of Grand Secretary Zhang Ying. In the 39th year of the Kangxi Emperor, he became a scholar and was appointed to the South Study. Kangxi was the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Justice. During the reign of the Yongjing Emperor, he was the Minister of Rights, the Minister of Revenue, the Minister of Appointments, the Grand Secretary of the Hall of Baohe, and the Chief Grand Secretary of the Grand Council. From the last years of Kangxi to the reign of Yongzheng, the lax administration of officials was rectified, and the Grand Council system was perfected. Zhang Tingyu served Kangxi, Yongzheng, and Qianlong 3 generations of emperors. After his death, he was conferred the title of Wenhe and was entitled to enjoy the imperial ancestral temple. He was the only Han official in the entire Qing dynasty who was entitled to enjoy the imperial ancestral temple. Just this point alone was enough to prove Zhang Tingyu's strength. If he was not born in the Qing dynasty ruled by the Manchus, Zhang Tingyu would be a famous minister. Ouyang Shuo took a step forward and supported Zhang Tingyu with his hands as he sincerely said, "Mister, please get up." As he spoke, he brought Zhang Tingyu out of the recruitment hall and checked his attributes. Name, Zhang Tingyu, Emperor level, Dynasty, Qing Dynasty, Identity. Official of Shanghai City, Occupation, Civil Official Loyalty, 75 Commander, 55 Strength, 3rd Intelligence, 85 Politics, 90 Specialty. Harmony increases the territory's incorruptibility by 35, increases the territory's work efficiency by 30, increases the territory's culture level by 10, increases the territory's governance level by 25. Evaluation. Peaceful, upright, knowledgeable, simple, responsible for the maintenance work, lacks all night long, praising me for not being able to catch up and relying on proper qualifications. Pure and honest, sincere in his duties. If you do not endure, you will not vomit. You are wise and wise. Chapter 560. Zhang Tingyu was worthy of being a famous official. Not only had his politics reached 90 points, even his intelligence had reached 85 points. Even his commanding skill, which was not a civil official specialty, had reached 55 points. In addition, Zhang Tingyu's specialty, harmony, had improved the governance of the territory in all aspects, as expected of an emperor-level historical official. Compared to Fan Zhongyan and Tian Wenjing, he was a notch above them. Zhang Tingyu's arrival made it easier for Ouyang Shuo to adjust the structure of the Southern Border Protectorate. Previously, Ouyang Shuo had been in a dilemma about who to appoint to manage the governance of the territory. But now, he had a perfect candidate. As the head of the Administrative Bureau, He had to take care of the various departments of the Administrative Bureau. He could not put all his energy into governance, and the governance of the territory was the most important thing. Thus, he had to choose an experienced and powerful person to take the helm. Zhang Tingyu was naturally a suitable candidate. In the last years of Kangxi's reign, when the governance was lax and politics were unclear, Zhang Tingyu was the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Personnel. He resolutely banned the practice of bribery and severely punished treacherous officials. He also withstood pressure from all sides to severely punish the tiger-subduing official, tiger-subduing assistant minister. Zhang Tingyu first started small and plugged up all the loopholes. Because he was deeply trusted by Emperor Kangxi, he had been an examiner for the imperial examination 3 times. This was something that almost no one could compare to at that time. Other than reorganizing the government, Zhang Tingyu's arrival also helped to perfect the Southern Border Protectorate's memorial system. In truth, the official letters coming and going from the territory were rather casual. Ouyang Shuo was often away, so if there was anything, he would just write a letter and send it to the relevant departments or individuals through the relay stations. For example, this was the case with the previous restructuring of the army. In between, There were no records or anything left behind. It was precisely because there were no records that no one followed Ouyang Shua's orders. It was all based on the intuition of his subordinates. Previously, the territory was not large, so Ouyang Shua had a clear idea of what to do. His subordinates were not crafty or deceitful. They would handle everything properly on time. But now that the territory was officially divided into 7 counties, he could no longer be so casual. There were at least dozens of official letters coming and going every day. Even if Ouyang Shua was a god, he would still be too busy. Because of this, Ouyang Shua issued a decree to expand the secretarial office as soon as he returned to Shanghai City. In addition, it was imperative to establish a reasonable system of memorials. When the Qing dynasty first entered the Shanhaiguan Pass, they followed the old system of the former Ming dynasty. Officials reported to the emperor when they had something to report. For official matters, they used a title, and for private matters, they used a memorial. The questions were sealed, but the memorials were not. These two kinds of documents are open to the public, which is not conducive to the dissemination of information. Moreover, the procedures for handling the documents are cumbersome, and it is easy for secrets to be leaked. During the reign of Yongzheng, Zhang Tingyu systematized memorials to the throne. For slightly more important matters, local officials would first write memorials to the throne, which would be approved by the emperor. Only after that would they write an official report. However, the contents of the memorial could not be written into the script. Thus, the title became a gobbledygook, and the memorial replaced the original role of the title, becoming the main official document. This system persisted until the end of the Qing dynasty. In addition, Zhang Tingyu also established a perfect confidentiality system. In order to ensure that the contents of the memorials would not be leaked, the Qing court established a set of confidentiality system, making the memorials system even more perfect. From then on, the memorial system was established as an official document system. Not only did it involve the implementation of the imperial court's decrees, but it also involved the distribution of power between the emperor and his officials. Therefore, those who were not in the know would not be able to lead this reform. Even the famous minister of a generation, Xiao He, was not as professional and knowledgeable as Zhang Tingyu when it came to drafting the memorial system for the territory, due to the limitations of the dynasty. Ouyang Shua brought Zhang Tingyu to the protectorate, but he was not in a hurry to appoint or dismiss him. Instead, he placed him in the secretary's office as the Marquis's political advisor, responsible for drafting the territory's memorial system. Zhang Tingyu could also use this opportunity to understand the structure and operations of the Southern Protectorate. After all, the structure and operations of the Protectorate were very different from the dynasties and generations. Zhang Tingyu was swift and decisive. That afternoon, he began to busy himself. Ouyang Shua instructed his secretary, Lang by Nanpu, to fully cooperate with Zhang Tingyu and began to busy himself with other matters. As the end of the year approached, Gaia would probably make a series of big moves. As the Lord, Ouyang Shua had to constantly pay attention to the system announcements to understand the latest developments in the game. On the 30th day of the 12th month of the second year of Gaia, a system announcement resounded throughout the world. World announcement. On the second anniversary of Earth's operation, the game will be undergoing its 3rd update, effective immediately. For the details, please check the official website. Regardless of whether it was adventure players or lore players, they were extremely concerned about the annual system update. Even a small change could affect their future decisions. In the second system update, the hidden professions, secret realms, and a miracle system had greatly enriched the gameplay of adventure-type players. In a year, the status of adventure-type players had significantly improved. The appearance of a large number of mercenary groups and their participation in the wilderness battlefield was the most obvious example. Taking this opportunity, the guilds of the 9 great royal cities also experienced a deep reshuffle. No one knew what interesting content would be in this update. Therefore, when the announcement came out, Ouyang Shua immediately logged into the official website to check the update. One super trading platform is canceled. The super trading platform, which had been in operation for 2 years, was officially offline from today onwards. The transactions between players, including the trade between lords and merchant associations, could only be completed face-to-face. Other than that, there were only physical channels such as the auction houses and shops in the various cities. All goods could no longer be instantly teleported through the super trading platform's teleportation array. For the players, especially the Overlord players, the first update was undoubtedly a bolt from the blue. Ouyang Shua had long expected this, so he was very calm. Ouyang Shua could also guess Gaia's intentions. There was no doubt that in the early stages of the game, the super trading platform's remote trading function played a crucial role for the Lord players to establish a foundation in the wilderness. At that time, the 9 great royal cities also played the dual roles of a system city and a nanny. Now, the game had been in operation for 2 years. Even the worst lord had promoted his territory to a second-class county or above. Obviously, in Gaia's view, the role of nanny played by the king cities was about to come to an end. It was time for the Lord of the Wilderness to survive independently. After all, Gaia's goal was not to do charity, but to select the strong. Chapter 561. In addition, Gaia had other reasons for canceling the super trading platform. Although it could be said that the territories in the wilderness could basically be self-sufficient, there was still a huge gap between them. However, because of the different regions, the different distribution of resources, as well as the different development models of the territories, every territory, including Shanghai City, had the need to carry out trade with the outside world. It could be selling products, buying raw materials, and so on. After the super trading platform went offline, there were only 2 ways for the lords to meet their trade needs. One was naturally to continue trading with the royal city through transportation in the wilderness. However, this was not feasible in a short period of time for the territories far away from the royal city. There was only the second way, and that was to carry out trade between the territories. The most convenient way was naturally to trade with the neighbors. However, the theme of the wilderness was war, the survival of the fittest. Generally speaking, there was no such thing as friendly neighbors. It was really difficult to carry out trade. Gaia, of course, knew this. It wanted to use this to subtly warn the lords of the wilderness that in addition to war, there was also trade in the wilderness. After all, it was very likely that they would be able to carry out trade with the local natives when they reached Hope Planet. The candidates naturally had to start training in advance. For Shanghai City, being surrounded by the 4 major city-states, there seemed to be no other way but to carry out trade with Lingxi City. Fortunately, Ouyang Shua had already made arrangements in advance and opened up a sea trade channel with the royal city of Chuanzhou. Therefore, although Shanghai City was not close to the royal city, with the convenience of sea transport, they could still continue to carry out trade with the royal city of Chuanzhou. Of course, for Shanghai City, there was still a test. First, the salt trade of Shanghai City would be affected to a certain extent. Chuanzhou itself was a coastal city and did not need to import salt. Therefore, the only way to sell salt in the territory, other than through internal consumption, was through trade between territories. Salt was one of the main commodities of the territory. Whether it was the earliest Beihai City, Cheongzhou County, Liizhou County, or finally Jinhai City, the profit brought by salt was one of the main financial revenues of the territory. Second, the acquisition channels of iron, ore, coal, and other resources were limited. Although Ouyang Shua had long taken precautions against this, it was not a long-term plan. Finding a stable resource import channel was related to the territory's future industrialization strategy. As for other effects, they still needed to be evaluated by the business department. All in all, the period after the super trading platform was canceled would be a huge test for all the territories. When Lord Chunshin heard the news, his face turned pale on the spot. It should be noted that his family was established in business. The members of the various families all ran their own chambers of commerce in Royal City. After removing the super trading platform, these chambers of commerce were equivalent to becoming independent from the main family. This was undoubtedly bad news for Danyang City, which was extremely reliant on the support of the Chamber of Commerce. Cancel the national channel, guild channel, and alliance channel. Communication between players was either through the courier station's mail system or through the forums. This was another update that made all the players uncomfortable and even a little painful. Gaia's action was to make the wilderness more realistic. Canceling the national channel was equivalent to isolating the players, making it impossible for them to communicate on the same channel. The Earth attribute would be further strengthened and even solidified. The removal of the guild channel increased the difficulty of managing the guild by several levels. This, in turn, limited the size of the guild. Obviously, Gaia advocated a streamlined guild organization. Canceling the alliance channel was forcing the alliance members to strengthen face-to-face communication and communication. Ouyang Shua didn't have much of an opinion about this. In his previous life, he had long since gotten used to the absence of these channels. In fact, when the players gradually adapted to the game life without the existence of channels, they would instead further liberate their gaming instincts and develop a greater sense of identity with the wilderness. At the same time, the boundary between players and NPCs would also further blur and weaken. Cancel the player's level and replace it with the combat power evaluation level. The evaluation level was divided into bronze, black iron, silver, gold, dark gold, and god. Each level was further divided into high, middle, and low grades. The combat power was a dynamic data that constantly fluctuated. It was a comprehensive evaluation of a player's level, attributes, equipment, skills, and other factors. Ouyang Shua checked and found that his evaluation level was silver high grade. From this, it could be seen that the combat power evaluation level was still very valuable. In the 5th year of his previous life, the number 1 expert in China was only rated as dark gold low grade. Moreover, the higher the level, the more difficult it was to improve and the longer it took. It was reported that there were special test missions for players to break through to God level. Canceling the player's level was naturally a part of Gaia's modification of the game's authenticity. Ouyang Shua also knew that in the future, even the character attributes and equipment attributes would be canceled. Carry out a comprehensive upgrade of the courier stations and officially open the carriage system. The previous courier stations were only responsible for receiving and receiving letters, which was somewhat unworthy of its name. After the update, all courier stations in the cities would automatically refresh the system's carriages. Be it players or NPCs, they could all ride the carriages and travel between cities. Naturally, the courier stations also had to pay for the carriages, and the profits would be split equally between the system and the territory. This also meant that the more prosperous the territory, the higher the income of the lord. Apart from the carriages, the courier stations would also provide horse and carriage rentals, as well as goods consignment services. The so-called goods consignment service was somewhat similar to the ancient escort agency, but it was an enhanced version. Of course, it was also charged. What was special about the relay station was that the speed of the carriages and horses at the relay station was 20 times faster than the speed of the regular carriages and horses. This way, not only did it offset the factor of the map expanding by 10 times, but it was also twice as fast. It could be foreseen how popular the various courier stations would be in the future. Even the government had to rely on the courier station system. Of course, it was unrealistic to use the courier stations to mobilize a large number of troops. Gaia had strict restrictions on this. Obviously, the update of the courier station showed that Gaia had made a good balance between the authenticity of the game and the convenience of the players. At least Gaia did not blindly pursue authenticity. Chapter 562. In fact, the update of the courier station was closely related to the cancellation of the super trading platform. In the wilderness, even if one wanted to start trading between territories, limited by the size of the territory, the long journey, and many difficulties, a trip on the trade route would take half a month, or even longer. And this was obviously extremely disadvantageous to promoting trade. Because of this, Gaia gave the courier station the function of commission transportation. In this way, Merchants only needed to pay a small transportation fee and could quickly transport goods through a carriage that was 20 times the speed. In fact, this was a weakened version of the transportation array for goods. Of course, for the wilderness, this was a super enhanced version of the official escort agency. 5. Remove the outer barrier of the royal city, completely bordering the wilderness. Before this, there was a natural barrier outside the royal city, forming a geographical isolation from the territories in the wilderness. This update was to remove this barrier. In this way, the royal city was no longer a special existence, but a giant neutral city. At the same time, the territories in the wilderness, especially the territories near the royal city, would become extremely convenient to trade with the royal city. The courier station system between the cities would be fully connected. Of course, Gaia had a deeper meaning behind this. From now on, the 9 great royal cities would gradually extend their tentacles into the depths of the wilderness, either openly or secretly, affecting the situation in the wilderness. For the lords, there were a few more opponents to worry about and evaluate. Although there were only 5 updates, they would have an extremely profound impact on the wilderness. Ouyang Shua sighed after reading it. Gaia's 3 years were destined to be another year of change. In the afternoon of the same day, another system announcement sounded. World announcement. On the 2nd anniversary of Earth's operation, the game will release the 2nd expansion pack, Rise of the Noble Families. For the specific content, please visit the official website. Noble families were large families with large surnames that have been around for generations. At the end of the Western Han Dynasty, Wang Mang seized power and changed the name of the country to Xian. After Wang Mang ascended the throne, in order to ease class conflicts, he changed the ancient system to reform. However, because the reform increased the burden of the people, coupled with natural disasters, large-scale peasant uprisings broke out everywhere. Liu Xiu, a distant branch of the Western Han royal family who joined the Greenwood Rebellion, finally relied on the support of the powerful landlords to defeat the other rebels and establish the Eastern Han Dynasty. Powerful landlords were usually large clans with generations of ministers. They owned private manors and had a large number of troops. In order to win them over, Liu Xiu appointed a large number of them and gave them high positions and rich titles. He also married the rich landlords, who gradually became the pillars of the Eastern Han Dynasty. These powerful landlords could be seen as the predecessors of the aristocratic families. During the Eastern Han Dynasty, officials were selected through the imperial examination system. Later on, the imperial examination system was gradually monopolized by the aristocratic families. It became a tool for them to win over scholars and form cliques for personal gain. The scholars were not only loyal to the emperor, but also to their former masters. Gradually, they formed the standard of a dual monarch. This laid the cultural and ideological foundation for the warlords in the last years of the Eastern Han Dynasty. Most of the independent warlords at the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty were from aristocratic families. Hebei's warlord, Yuan Shao's family, had for generations 3 dukes and many old officials. Therefore, it could be said that the warlords and the establishment of the 3 kingdoms at the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty were the inevitable result of the continuous expansion of the power of the aristocratic families. Qiao Pai's usurpation of the Han Dynasty was supported by the aristocratic families. In order to repay the aristocratic families, he established a 9-rank official selection system. The power to select officials was concentrated in the hands of the aristocratic families. In the later years of Qiao Wei, the struggle for power between the royal family and the aristocratic families was unprecedentedly fierce. Later on, the aristocratic families led by Sima Yi launched a coup and seized the supreme power of Qiao Wei. Sima Yi's grandson, Sima Yin, seized the Western Jin dynasty of Wei and was also supported by the aristocratic families. After the Western Jin dynasty destroyed Shu and Wu kingdom, the aristocratic families developed further, forming a situation where there were no poor families in the upper rank and no gentry families in the lower rank. After the establishment of the Western Jin dynasty, the imperial family of Qiao Wei was weak, So they wantonly infect the members of the imperial family and ordered them to guard the country. The kings and the aristocratic families in the country further colluded. Emperor Wu of Jin mistakenly chose the mentally retarded Emperor Hui of Jin to succeed the throne. The princes coveted the throne, and in order to seize the throne, they fought each other. The tragedy of the Sima family killing each other was the Eight Princes' Rebellion. After the Eight Kings' Rebellion, Sima Yu and the aristocratic family, the Langyao Wang family, gradually gained real power in the court. Later, Sima Yu died of illness, and Wang Yanbing was defeated and killed. The Langyao Wang family was the first to go east and colluded with King Sima Rui. Director Wang used various means to unite the aristocratic families in the south. When the Western Jin dynasty was completely destroyed, he supported Sima Rui in Jiankong and established the Eastern Jin dynasty. After the establishment of the Eastern Jin dynasty, Sima Rui relied on Director Wang politically and Wang done militarily, forming a situation where the king and the horse ruled the world. Later, Sima Rui wanted to weaken the power of the Langyao Wang family, but Director Wang rebelled and the court was defeated. They were forced to yield to Wang Dun. The aristocratic family's arbitrary control of the court had become an irreversible trend. Looking at the Eastern Jin dynasty, the court had always been in the hands of the Langyao Wang family, the Qiao Kingdom's Huan family, the Qin County Xie family, and the Yingchuan Yu family. Most of the emperors were like puppets. Although Liu Yu, who usurped the Eastern Jin dynasty and established the Song dynasty, came from a poor family, he spared no effort in supporting the aristocratic families. This could be seen from the background of the 4 ministers he appointed to assist him. During the Southern dynasty, the aristocratic families were still the mainstay of the ruling class. The 5 barbarians, 16 kingdoms, and Northern dynasty, which stood side by side with the Southern dynasty, came to the Central Plains as nomads. However, they respected the interests and privileges of the aristocratic families and employed them in large numbers. At that time, the aristocratic families in the north, such as the Liu family of Fanyang, the Li family of Longxi, the Yang family of Hongnong, the Suo family of Dunhuang, the Li family of Zhao County, and the Chui family of Qinghe, flourished in their countries for a long time. Emperor Xiaowen of the Northern Wei dynasty carried out a reform that was completely Han, restoring the aristocratic family system from the Wei Jin dynasty. The aristocratic families in the north expanded again. The powerful minister of the Western Wei dynasty, Yuan Tai, used the prefectural military system as a link to unite the aristocratic families and Xianbei families in the north, especially in Guangzhou, forming a group of aristocratic families, the Guanlong military group. During the Sui and Tang dynasties, the emperors of both dynasties were from the Guanlong military group. However, in order to win over the commoners and landlords, they established the imperial examination system to select officials. However, the imperial examination system in the Sui and Tang dynasties played a very limited role as an official selection system. The aristocratic families still monopolized the court. Finally, during the Sui and Tang dynasties, the Hongnong Yang family, the Longxi Li family, the Jingzhou Wei family, the Jingzhou Du family, the Puzhou Pei family, and other aristocratic families produced ministers and generals. However, there were very few prime ministers who came from a poor family. Huang Chao, who came from a poor family, failed many times and angrily rebelled against the Tang dynasty. After occupying Chong, he wantonly attacked the power of the aristocratic families. The aristocratic families that had influenced China for 900 years were unable to recover from this setback and basically withdrew from the stage of history. Chapter 563. The rise of the aristocratic families happened under this historical background. According to Gaia's settings, after the release of the expansion pack, 3 types of aristocratic families would appear in the wilderness. First, dynasty aristocratic families. The aristocratic families of the Eastern Han dynasty would appear in Luoyang. The aristocratic families of the Wei, Jin, and Northern and Southern dynasties would appear in Xuanzhou. The aristocratic families of the Sui and Tang dynasties would appear in Chang'an. The other royal cities would more or less have aristocratic families appear. Of course, the historical figures of the aristocratic families would not appear for the time being. They had to wait until the corresponding dynasties joined the wilderness process before they would appear one by one. Without a doubt, the appearance of the aristocratic families would bring different changes to the royal city. The somewhat illusory imperial court in the eyes of the players, as well as the aristocratic families in the city, would gradually materialize and appear in front of the players in a more realistic manner. The adventurous players in the royal city would have the opportunity to trigger more missions. The interaction between the two would be more frequent. In addition, due to this update, the outer barrier of the royal city would be removed. Therefore, it could not be ruled out that the aristocratic families of the royal city would exert their influence in the wilderness. The players' territories would have a greater opportunity to recruit outstanding talents. Second, the aristocratic families of the wilderness. Such aristocratic families would directly appear in the wilderness and compete head-on with the overlord players. In fact, although Xiang Yu's West Chu was the family of the late Qin dynasty, it was also classified as an aristocratic family. This also meant that Gaia's second year was just a warm-up year for West Chu. They would have to wait until Gaia's third year to truly show their might. As for Gaia's second year, the four major rebel armies would be the main characters of the wilderness. Unlike the rebel armies, the aristocratic families of the wilderness would not all appear at once. Instead, they would only appear when the corresponding dynasty's battle ended or when a certain mission was triggered. Therefore, they were more uncertain. Third, the aristocratic families of the territory. Once the historical talents recruited by the territory belonged to a certain aristocratic family, their clansmen would appear one by one. Of course, whether they could become officials or not was another matter. In addition, the various counties of the territory would also give rise to local aristocratic families. For the territory, there were advantages and disadvantages. Needless to say, although the aristocratic families would impede the imperial power, there were indeed many talents among their clansmen. It would have an immediate effect on solving the shortage of talents in the territory. The downside was equally obvious, which was that it would create a powerful faction within the territory. In a sense, it would be a hindrance to the authority of the overlord and the passing of government orders. All in all, Rise of the Noble Families was not as simple and violent as Rise of Rebellion. It would be more secretive, and its tentacles would go deep into the territory. For the Lord of the Wilderness, this was an even greater test. Not long after the expansion pack was released, another system announcement shook the entire world. World announcement. On the second anniversary of Earth on Lee's launch, a limited-time redemption event for achievement points will be launched. For the details, please check the official website. For players all over the world, achievement points were a sensitive topic. This was because the number of achievement points determined the level of authority they could obtain on Hope Planet. The players, including Ouyang Shua, worked hard in the game to obtain achievement points and increase their citizen rights. Now, Gaia claimed that achievement points could be exchanged in-game. The impact on the players could be imagined. Even Ouyang Shua was dumbfounded. This was because, in his memory, there was no such limited-time redemption event in his previous life. Obviously, he, as a reincarnator, had once again changed the course of the world. According to the information disclosed on Gaia's official website, the so-called exchange only occurred between in-game gold coins and real-life achievement points. Players could exchange the initial achievement points obtained on Earth for in-game gold coins, and they could also exchange the in-game gold coins obtained for real-life achievement points. The exchange ratio between the two was 1:200, which meant that one achievement point could be exchanged for 200 gold coins. This was because when they migrated, the personal assets of the citizens had been greatly reduced by the discount coefficient. Especially for the rich with assets of more than 100 million, the discount coefficient reached a terrifying 0.00001. A rich man with 100 million credits would only obtain 10,000 achievement points in the end. In addition, The game had been running for 2 years, and the production of gold coins had greatly increased. The exchange rate between gold coins and credits had greatly depreciated. Therefore, the exchange ratio of 1:200 was considered reasonable. Take a billionaire as an example. If he exchanged all 10,000 achievement points in the real world for gold coins, he could obtain 2 million gold coins in one go. The actual exchange ratio between credits and gold coins was 50:1. In addition, if a large number of gold coins were to be exchanged into the game, it would definitely cause the gold coins to depreciate again. The actual exchange ratio that could be used would be even lower. Therefore, exchanging achievement points for gold coins was a gamble with no way out. For ordinary players, because their asset discount coefficient was low, if they exchanged achievement point for gold coins, it would be very worthwhile. A normal adult's achievement points were around 1,000 points. If all of them were exchanged for gold coins, it would be 200,000 gold coins. This was a huge amount of wealth for ordinary players. Of course, to prevent players from having gambler's mentality, Gaia limited the amount of achievement points a player could exchange for to not exceed a third of their current achievement points. In other words, a player with 1,000 achievement points could only exchange for 333 points at most, which would be 66,600 gold coins. And for the various major factions, this was also a gamble with no way out. Take Chun Jun as an example. He was currently showing signs of decline in the game. Without external help, it would be difficult for him to return to his peak. And once he exchanged for his massive amount of achievement points, he could be revived in the game. In that case, Chun Jun would really have no way out in the game, because he could no longer afford to lose. As for exchanging gold coins for achievement points, at present, there were probably not many players in the world who had such a strong capital. Even the world's #1 overlord, Ouyang Shaw, had pitifully little liquid capital. 200,000 gold coins could only be exchanged for 1,000 achievement points. No one would exchange for that. Once they were exchanged, it would undoubtedly be like drinking poison to quench thirst. It would destroy the foundation of the game in advance. After all, even Ouyang Shaw did not know how Gaia would evaluate the player's assets in the game after the end of the 10 years. Therefore, exchanging ahead of time was not a wise move. Chapter 564. The deadline for the limited-time exchange of achievement points was the 3rd year of Gaia, January 1st, midnight. There was only 1 day left for the players to make a decision. The regular system auction would also be postponed to the morning of the 2nd day of January. Ouyang Shaw was able to imagine what sort of storm of blood would arise in the auction this time. He no longer had the confidence to look down on the crowd at the auction. China had a huge population of nearly 100 million players. There would definitely be a considerable number of players who would choose to take the risk and exchange achievement points for gold coins, giving it their all in the game. The funds in the hands of the players would be astonishingly huge in this auction. Ouyang Shaw only kept 150,000 gold coins from the territory's revenue for December. This was all the funds that Ouyang Shaw had prepared for the auction. 150,000 gold coins. To be able to get one item would be considered lucky. Ouyang Shaw did not plan to participate in the limited-time exchange. After the awakening of his bloodline, his personal authority had been raised to sea level. In theory, Ouyang Shaw should have 100,000 achievement points. Unfortunately, Ouyang Shaw's authority was directly raised through Gaia. Therefore, this portion of achievement points was locked and could not be exchanged at all. Otherwise, Ouyang Shaw would also exchange some gold coins for emergency purposes. After all, Gaia had never disappointed the players with the items it auctioned every time it held an auction. Gaia, the 3rd year of Gaia, January 1st, Shanghai City. In previous years, Ouyang Shaw would participate in the auction at this time, but today was an exception. Therefore, while there was still time, Ouyang Shaw went to the 2 hidden buildings to use up the newly refreshed usage. He did not know what kind of surprise the Silver Wish Tower and the recruitment hall would bring him. Ouyang Shaw first walked into the Silver Prayer Tower. This time he brought Binger his lucky star. The activation and use of the hidden building did not depend on Ouyang Shaw. As long as it was someone authorized by the Lord, they could activate the hidden building. Otherwise, Bai Nanpu would not be able to recruit special talents at the recruitment hall on time every month. Binger was obviously very interested in the hidden building. Brother, which one should I choose? After getting Ouyang Shua's authorization, Binger was already a little impatient. I choose that gold ingot. Without the slightest hesitation, Ouyang Shua chose the gold ingot on the top floor. Although the gold ingot represented another type and was highly random, with Binger's luck, no matter how random it was, there would always be an ideal result. Binger listened to him and chose the type of wish. The next step was to choose the wish mode, custom or random. If it was Ouyang Shua's choice, there was an 80% chance that he would choose custom. Now that it was Binger, Ouyang Shua did not hesitate to let her choose random. Ouyang Shua was still unsure of the extent of the wishes he could make. If the difficulty was too low, it would be a waste of a hard-earned opportunity. If the difficulty was too high, it would easily exceed the limit of 100,000 gold coins, causing the wish to fail. Random mode, on the other hand, depended purely on luck. The virtual compass of wishes could only be seen by the operator himself. At this point, Ouyang Shua could not see the compass, and could only hear Bing-er's clear voice, "Stop." Subsequently, the sound of a system notification entered Ouyang Shua's ears. System notification. Congratulations to player not have clothes. Obtained other type wish raised territorial navy's resistance to wind and waves by 55. 100,000 gold coins will be automatically deducted. Friendly reminder. This wish will take effect from Gaia 3rd year, January 1st, to Gaia 3rd year, December 30th. Freak. It was truly freak. Bing-er's luck had already reached an invincible state. Indeed, she had drawn the highest level wish of 100,000 gold coins. Furthermore, it was a very precious sailing buff. Gaia 3rd year would be a year of great development for the territorial navy. This buff came at the right time. With this buff, Ouyang Shua was even more confident in carrying out his plans. As for the deduction of 100,000 gold coins, Ouyang Shua did not feel the pinch at all. The increase in wind and waves resistance by 55, coupled with the augmentation of Mazu Temple, Shanghai City's navy would be able to traverse as though they were on flat ground, no matter how dangerous the sea was. Sailing was no longer a dream. Ouyang Shua was now really praying that the recruitment hall would send him a navy commander. Binger, you're awesome. Ouyang Shua could not help but pinch the little lass's chubby cheeks. Of course, the little lass was still so tsundere, but her eyes could not hide the smile that was about to overflow. Let's go to the recruitment hall and recruit another divine general for brother. Ouyang Shua led the way out of the Silver Wish Tower. Yes, the little lass nodded her head vigorously and followed closely behind. In the hall, Binger did as she was told. She pressed her white and tender palm on the dent. Suddenly, a system notification sounded in her ears. System notification. Congratulations to player Ouyang Bing for opening the recruitment hall. The recruitment hall has one chance to recruit special talents and one chance to recruit historical talents. Do you want to recruit? Recruiting historical talents. Bing was extremely clever. She did not miss a single word of Ouyang Shua's instructions. Suddenly, a system notification sounded in Ouyang Shua's ears. System notification. Congratulations to player not have clothes. You have successfully recruited a god-level historical character. Zheng He. 100 gold coins are automatically deducted. A white light flashed, and a middle-aged scholar walked out from the teleportation array. Sambao pays respect to the Lord. Seeing this, Ouyang Shua felt a little dizzy. Could it be that the gap between people was really that big? Bing-er's luck was too amazing. She recruited a god-level historical talent in one move, and it was the most scarce naval talent. If it was Ouyang Shua, he would be extremely lucky to be able to recruit an emperor-level talent. Zheng, he was a legendary figure in China's history. Ouyang Shua really felt that even the heavens were helping him. He was so excited that he forgot to greet Zheng He and directly checked Zheng He's attributes. Name, Zheng He God level, Dynasty, Ming Dynasty identity, General of Shanghai City, occupation, Special General, Master Navigator, loyalty, 75 points commander, 92 force, 70 intelligence, 80 politics, 70 specialty, annihilation in every battle, increase the range and power of cannons by 20, increase the speed of warships by 40, increase the defense of warships by 35, increase the morale of naval forces by 45. Martial arts, Encyclopedia of Navigation, remarks, Zheng He, nicknamed Sambao, a famous navigator and diplomat. He has made 7 voyages to the Western Ocean and completed the greatest feat in human history. He understands the art of war, has strategies, is brave and good at fighting, and has the ability to command. Chapter 565. The Nanyang Navy temporarily had 3 fleets: the North Sea Bay Fleet stationed in Beihai City, the Cliff Mountain Fleet stationed in Cliff Mountain City, and the Jiaozhou Fleet stationed in Jinhai City. Among the 3 fleets, the strongest was the Cliff Mountain Fleet led by Kai Mao, which had expanded to 3 large formations. Not to mention his ability to command troops, Kai Mao's ability to train the Navy was recognized by Ouyang Shaw. In a short time, he had built the Cliff Mountain Fleet into the territory's strongest fleet. The North Sea Bay Fleet was second, also with 2 large formations, led by Pei Donglai. As for the Jiaozhou Fleet, which was the latest to be formed, there was only 1 formation, led by Smoke and Fire. According to the military structure, the Navy's formation was equivalent to the Army's division, the fleet was equivalent to a legion, and the Navy was equivalent to a group army. Now, the land's 3 main armies were in place. On the other hand, the Nanyang Navy, which was the first to receive a designation, was still a broken structure. The 3 fleets added together only had 6 formations, which was only slightly stronger than a legion of the army. The territory's navy was lagging behind, and that was an indisputable fact. There were only 3 reasons for this. First, there was a lack of navy generals. This was the most fatal point. Kai Mao was the only navy commander the territory could bring out. As for the territory's earliest navy general, Pei Donglai, with the support of the territory's characteristics, he had already broken through the bottleneck and was promoted to a high-level navy general. It was even more difficult to take another step forward. On the other hand, Smoke and Fire had extraordinary potential. In time, he would definitely become a star of the territory's navy. In comparison, the territory's army was a shining star. Second, it was not easy to train sailors. Different from the army, the Navy had to train a group of sailors in addition to the Navy soldiers. Their training period was long, and the demand was high, which naturally limited the Navy's expansion. Apart from the ordinary sailors, it was even more difficult to train the captain, first mate, second mate, and other high-ranking crew members. Every captain did not come by easily. For this, Ouyang Shuo had already arranged for the military office to go to Chuanzhou to recruit. Even so, it still could not keep up with the Navy's expansion needs. Third, they lacked experience in ocean voyages. Kai Mao was a typical inland Navy general. It was already difficult for him to train the Navy in Cliff Mountain City. If he were to lead his troops out to sea, it would be too much for him. However, if it was just fighting in the coastal waters, there was no need to support such a large navy for a long period of time. Instead, it would be a huge burden on the territory's finances. Thus, objectively, it restricted the rapid expansion of the Navy. Even the head of military affairs, Du Ruhui, maintained a conservative attitude when it came to the Navy. Other than that, in the second year of Gaia, the tense situation around the territory, the threat of Chiyu City, and the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom forced Ouyang Shuo to place his strategic focus on the construction of the army. Currently, Ouyang Shuo had decided to recuperate internally. The territory could make use of this rare period of time to develop the Navy. Recruiting Zheng He, the commander of the Navy, was undoubtedly a great opportunity for the territory's Navy. Otherwise, why would they say that Binger was a super unbeatable lucky star? Whatever Ouyang Shuo wanted, the little girl would be able to recruit it. Coupled with the buff from the Silver Wish Tower, it was simply a seamless combination. Zheng He, born in the 4th year of Hongwu of the Ming dynasty, was the second son of Maha. In the winter of the 13th year of Hongwu, the Ming army attacked Yunnan. Mahi was only 10 years old and was taken to Nanjing by the deputy commander of the Ming army, Lan Yu. After being castrated and turned into a eunuch, he entered Zhu Di's prince of Yan's residence. In the 1st year of Yongle, monk Yao Daoyan accepted Ma He as a disciple of the Bodhisattva precepts. His Buddhist name was Fu Jixiang. In the 2nd year of Yongle, Zheng He made great achievements in battle. Emperor Qingzu of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Di, in Nanjing, bestowed the word Zheng on Ma He and the surname Zheng to commemorate his achievements in battle. He was also promoted to the position of eunuch of the imperial household, a rank 4 official, second only to the director of rites. Zheng He was wise and knew how to fight. Emperor Qingzu of the Ming dynasty trusted Zheng He greatly. From 1405 to 1433, Zheng He made 7 voyages to the west, completing the greatest feat in human history. In the 8th year of Xuande, Zheng He died in Guri country on the west coast of India and was buried at Mount Nyosho in Nanjing. Not to mention Zheng He's ability to command troops, just his identity as a grandmaster navigator and his rich experience in ocean voyages were enough to bring about a transformation for the territory's navy. Zheng He's great nautical technology was a combination of celestial navigation, compass navigation, landmark navigation, measuring water depth and bottom quality, and many other navigation methods. As recorded in the records of the Western countries, cut wood to make a plate, carve the words stem and branch on the book, and float a needle in the water, pointing to the boat. Among them, the most famous was the star traction technique. The star traction technique was not some witchcraft, but a scientific method of using the star traction board to observe and determine the position and direction of the ship by measuring the height of the sky. This technique represented the world's most advanced level of celestial navigation in that era. At the same time, due to the problems of storing fresh water on the ship, the stability of the ship, and the ability to resist sinking, Zheng He's fleet was able to sail high and sail day and night under the dangerous conditions of great waves reaching the sky and huge waves like mountains, with very few accidents. During the day, they hung and waved flags of various colors in a predetermined manner, forming the corresponding flag signals. At night, they used lanterns to reflect the situation of the voyage, and when it was foggy or rainy, they were equipped with gongs, trumpets, and conch horns for communication. In short, Zheng He was a living encyclopedia of navigation. With Zheng He's existence, the territory's navy finally had the confidence to step into the deep sea. That afternoon, the Protectorate of Southern Border issued an edict. The newly joined God-level general, Zheng He, was appointed as the commander-in-chief of the Nanyang Navy, with the rank of Great General and the rank of Commander-in-Chief. Zheng He had just arrived and had yet to familiarize himself with the territory situation, but he was already given such a high position. Even Bai Qi and the others had never received such an honor. From this, one could see how much importance Ouyang Shuo placed on Zheng He. As a legendary navigator, although Zheng He's individual strength wasn't great and his ability to command couldn't compare to Bai Qi and the others, he had an advantage that other generals didn't have. That was, Zheng He was able to command a huge ocean-going fleet. This was why Ouyang Shuo thought so highly of him. Fighting on the sea, especially after warships were equipped with cannons, didn't require individual bravery. On the contrary, it was more important to be able to lead a fleet on the turbulent seas. Zheng He undoubtedly had this ability. Ouyang Shuo had reason to believe that under Zheng He's command, the Nanyang Navy could truly be established. Chapter 566. In the afternoon of the first day of the first month of the 3rd year of Gaia, the Southern Border Protectorate, Ouyang Shuo, together with the newly appointed Nanyang Navy Governor Zheng He, and Du Ruhui, who had just returned from Milan Fortress, had a secret discussion in his study for the entire afternoon. The topic of discussion was the Great Voyage plan that Ouyang Shuo had been planning all this time. In the first half of the third year of Gaia, the territory would focus on developing its internal affairs and solidify its foundation. It would not wage any more wars. This was also the time for the Chamberlain of Dependencies, led by Zhang Yi, to perform. As for Ouyang Shuo, he turned his gaze to the boundless deep sea. Before this, Ouyang Shuo's Great Voyage plan was just an idea. After obtaining the gunpowder manufacturing manual of the Ming Dynasty, the navigation buff, and the Grandmaster Navigator Zheng He, this plan could finally be put into action. Ouyang Shuo wanted to use this rare opportunity to expand his territory's advantage in the China region to a point where Di Chun and the others could not even catch up. Even if they used the achievement points in the real world to exchange for a vast amount of gold coins, they would not be able to create an overwhelming advantage over Shanghai City. Zheng He had sailed 7 times, but the furthest he could see was Africa, and Ouyang Shuo's gaze immediately shot to England and Europe. There, Ouyang Shuo would complete a great trade. It had to be said that Ouyang Shuo's idea was very crazy. Even Zheng He, who often sailed the west, felt his blood boil when he heard this, and his loyalty rose by 10 points. For Zheng He, the sea was his destiny. Ouyang Shuo only proposed a general idea. The specific planning and preparation work would be led by Zheng He, with the full cooperation of the military. This was why Zheng He and Du Ruhui needed to work together. Du Ruhui would hand over the reorganization of the army to Deputy Director Zhao Kuo, who would be in charge of it. Du Ruhui's next task was to cooperate with Zheng He and complete this Great Voyage plan. The three of them discussed until late into the night before they stopped. The next day, accompanied by Du Ruhui, Zheng He left Shanghai City to inspect the bases of the 3 fleets and make preparations for the Great Voyage plan. Sailing, especially over the sea, was never easy. From the construction of warships, to the recruitment and training of sailors, to the preparation of resources and personnel, to the formation of the expeditionary fleet, none of these could be done in a day. However, winter was approaching, and the fleet had to set sail as soon as possible. The northeast monsoon would blow along the coast of China in winter, and it would be able to send the fleet to the Indian Ocean smoothly. Once they missed the winter monsoon, it would be almost impossible for the fleet to move. Thus, in an era without steam-driven warships, long-distance voyages had to be made according to the season. At the same time, Ouyang Shuo took 100,000 gold coins and left for the capital accompanied by his personal guards. The shadow guards under the mountain sea guards had already been deployed in the capital. The commander of the shadow guards, Cui Tianqi, personally went to the capital to protect Ouyang Shuo in secret. Obviously, no one hoped that the assassination from last year would happen again. As for Song Jia, she would stay in Shanghai City to prepare for their wedding. Ouyang Shuo's status was extraordinary. Therefore, his marriage was different from the marriage of ordinary people. It was very significant. Because of that, the things that needed to be prepared were extremely complicated. For this reason, the Protectorate of Southern Border had even temporarily set up a Lord's Marriage Preparation Department. Jiang Shang personally took charge of this department. The specific work was handled by the Department of Culture under the Department of Science, Education, Culture, and Health. All the procedures and etiquette of the wedding were controlled by Jiang Shang and the Department of Culture and Education, Su Shuda. Not a single mistake could be made. This time, the Finance Department was unusually generous. They allocated 100,000 gold coins as the wedding expenses. The wedding date was set on the 2nd day of the 1st lunar month, which was the 4th day of the 2nd month of the 3rd year of Gaia. Using the silver wish hall had cost 100,000 gold coins. In order to reduce the burden of the finance department, Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to reduce the auction expenses. Ouyang Shuo didn't dare to imagine what use 100,000 gold coins would have. Even so, he still had to go. This auction was bound to be a gathering of talents. How could Ouyang Shuo miss it? The capital was as prosperous as ever. The only difference was that the city seemed to be filled with the smell of nobility. The rise of the noble families was slowly affecting the atmosphere of the capital. According to the forum, There were already players who had received related missions in the capital, but no one knew if it was true or not. Different from previous years, because the super trading platform had been canceled, the players, whether it was through missions, adventures, or fortuitous encounters, all sorts of random items had no sales channel. The wisdom of the players was endless. Some clever players, taking advantage of the auction, set up stalls in front of the auction house in the capital. Looking around, the entire central street was filled with the sound of hawking. Ever since the super trading platform was born, such a bustling scene of stalls was rare. Ouyang Shual, under the protection of his personal guards, walked on the central street, full of interest. This scene made him recall the various experiences of visiting stalls in his previous life. At that time, he hoped time and time again to be able to buy a good and cheap piece of equipment from his stalls, all for the remaining dozens of gold coins, or even a few gold coins. However, time and time again, he returned disappointed. Thinking of this, Ouyang Shuo had mixed feelings. He could use this opportunity to relive his old dreams. Ouyang Shuo looked at one stall after another, shaking his head and nodding from time to time. To the current Ouyang Shuo, how could an ordinary object enter his discerning eyes? Even though the central street was crowded with people, Ouyang Shuo's group was still the most dazzling existence. The 100 most powerful personal guards were enough to make other players flinch at the sight of them. Soon, some players recognized Ouyang Shuo. "It's the Marquis of Lianzhou," a sharp-eyed passerby said. "It's really him. He's so bored. He's actually visiting stalls like us." A jealous passerby said. "He's so handsome," a brainless, love-struck girl said. The entire street became more and more lively because of Ouyang Shuo's appearance. However, Ouyang Shuo looked calm. The personal guards led by Chan Damon were enough to ensure that no one could get close to Ouyang Shuo. Therefore, Ouyang Shuo was still leisurely strolling around stalls. However, his identity was exposed. The eyes of the players who set up stalls toward Ouyang Shuo instantly became hot, and they unceasingly advertised the treasures in their hands. Everyone knew that the person in front of them was a rich man. Oh no, a big tycoon. Chapter 567. Facing the enthusiasm of the stall owner, Ouyang Shuo remained calm. Of course, he wouldn't put down his pride and buy their so-called treasure just because of the other party's enthusiasm. Ouyang Shuo didn't want to be this rich guy. Even if Ouyang Shuo didn't buy anything, no one would dare say that he was stingy. This was the fundamental difference between a rich person and an ordinary player. Just as Ouyang Shuo gradually lost interest and was about to head to the auction house, a map suddenly entered his eyes, causing his eyes to narrow. North Bay treasure map, too. The map in front of him instantly made Ouyang Shuo remember that there were 2 treasure maps hidden in his storage pouch. Ouyang Shuo originally thought that he had no fate with this treasure. The 2 treasure maps were also thrown into the innermost corner of his storage pouch and were covered in dust. He didn't think that he would actually accidentally see the last treasure map in this stall. Fate was just so mysterious. At this moment, Ouyang Shuo really thought that he had been possessed by Bing Er's good fortune. Perhaps if it wasn't for the super trading platform being canceled, or if it wasn't for the stall in front of him, which reminded him of his past, Ouyang Shuo would really have no fate with this map. Even though he was shocked, Ouyang Shuo's face was still calm. Ever since his first glance, his eyes never swept over the treasure map, but instead circled around the other items. The stall owner was a young male player with spirited eyes. One look, and anyone could tell that he was a smart person. Although Ouyang Shuo didn't want to take advantage of the other party, he definitely wouldn't let him open his mouth. "How is it? Do you like anything?" The stall owner was all smiles. "How much is this?" Ouyang Shuo pointed at a territory characteristic scroll and asked. 5,000 gold coins. The stall owner indeed opened his mouth wide. This territory characteristic scroll only had the most ordinary characteristic, which was to increase the territory's rainfall by 5. Furthermore, it had a time limit of 3 months. To the territory, it was an existence that didn't matter. Just this kind of useless scroll, the stall owner actually directly asked for 5,000 gold coins. He really thought that he was a rich guy. Ouyang Shuo looked at the stall owner with a smile that wasn't a smile. He didn't say anything, but the stall owner felt an invisible pressure. The meaning of Ouyang Shuo's message was very clear. Don't take him for a fool. The stall owner smiled awkwardly and said, 1,500 gold coins. Ouyang Shuo pretended to shake his head and got up to leave. Hey, don't be like that. 1,000 gold coins, 1,000 gold coins. That's really the lowest price. The stall owner didn't want to spoil the deal. All right. Ouyang Shuo saw that the time was right, so he didn't pester him any further. He casually asked, are there any other more interesting items? Yes, yes, yes. The stall owner readily agreed and took the 1,000 gold coins from Ouyang Shuo's hand with a smile on his face. To ordinary players, 1,000 gold coins was an astronomical sum. Seeing this, the surrounding stall owners all revealed envious expressions. Seeing this, the stall owner was even more pleased. How about this? The stall owner picked up a chainmail. Ouyang Shuo shook his head. What about this one? This time it was an unknown ball. Ouyang Shuo shook his head once more, and his expression was slightly impatient. What do you think about this treasure map? It's a treasure. In the end, the stall owner still picked up the treasure map. Treasure map? Ouyang Shuo pretended to be interested. Yes, 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 and this treasure is in the North Bay. That's your territory. The stall owner inadvertently flattered him, and his smile became even brighter. Let me see. Ouyang Shuo nodded and took it, and once again confirmed the authenticity of the treasure map. The stall owner nervously looked at the customer in front of him. He saw Ouyang Shuo's expression slowly change from anticipation to disappointment, and finally, he shook his head and sighed. An incomplete treasure map? Ouyang Shuo's tone was like a smile that wasn't a smile. Hearing this, the stall owner also smiled embarrassedly. Of course, he knew the fatal flaw of this treasure map. If it was complete, he would have long put it up on the super trading platform. Why would he wait until today? No matter how incomplete it is, it's still a rare treasure map, isn't it? Who knows? Maybe you're lucky enough to obtain the other 2 treasure maps. That would be great. The stall owner obviously didn't want to give up. My basic source of fortune is 5 points. Ouyang Shuo said indifferently. The stall owner was speechless. A huge embarrassment was pasted on his face. How about this? You name a suitable price and I'll buy it. I'll treat it as a collection. Ouyang Shuo's tone was still as calm as before, and no one could see any flaws in it. How could the player in front of him compare to the long-term training in the territory? No matter how clever the stall owner was, he couldn't win against Ouyang Shuo, this old fox. 20,000 gold coins. This was really a person who valued money more than his life. Hearing this, Ouyang Shuo turned around and left. He was really speechless. Not to mention that the treasure map was incomplete. Even if he really found the treasure, it was another matter whether it was worth 20,000 gold coins or not. Hey, don't. Seeing that Ouyang Shuo was really going to leave, the stall owner regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He blamed himself for being too greedy and accidentally said too much. 5,000 gold coins, 5,000 gold coins, take it. The stall owner put on an expression as if he was jumping off a building to sell it. However, Ouyang Shuo's heart was as firm as iron, and he said indifferently, 3,000 gold coins. His tone contained a kind of unquestionable tone. Seeing this, the stall owner knew that he couldn't take advantage of it anymore, so he nodded and agreed. Ouyang Shuo took the map and floated away, no longer in the mood to continue strolling. No one knew what kind of fortune such a fortuitous encounter would bring to Shanghai City. Just at the instant Ouyang Shuo put the North Bay treasure map, too, into his storage bag, the sound of a system notification sounded in his ears. System notification. Congratulations to player, not saying you've successfully collected 3 North Bay treasure maps. The treasure maps can be fused. Do you want to fuse them? Yes. Swoosh. In an instant, the 3 treasure maps in Ouyang Shuo's storage bag instantly fused into one and became a simple and complete treasure map. In the history of the North Bay, the most famous great pirate, Bloody Slaughter, the enormous wealth that he plundered in his life, finally unveiled its mysterious veil and appeared in front of Ouyang Shaw. After leaving the stall, Ouyang Shaw immediately took out the complete treasure map and looked at it. Just as the treasure map described, Bloody Slaughter's treasure was buried in an uninhabited deserted island. Moreover, this deserted island was within the North Bay Sea. However, what made Ouyang Shaw frown was that according to the location of the treasure map, this deserted island was actually near the Annan district. If he wanted to obtain the treasure, he would probably alarm the Annan district's player forces. As expected, there was no free lunch in the sky. Chapter 568. Speaking of Annan, it was also within the scope of Ouyang Shaw's strategic attack. That's fine. I'll take this opportunity to warm up a bit. As Ouyang Shaw thought this, he quickly walked towards the capital's auction house. Just as he reached the main entrance, he unexpectedly ran into Lord Chunshin. Ah, isn't this Lord Wui? After suffering a few big losses at Ouyang Shaw's hands, Lord Chunshin could no longer feign civility towards Ouyang Shaw. It's me. Ouyang Shaw was rather calm. Presumably, this time, Lord Wui will once again show off his skills at the auction. Lord Chunshin's eyes twitched slightly. Speaking of which, you are a famous auctioneer. These words were not false. In the previous two auctions, Ouyang Shaw had used his financial advantage to win nearly half of the auction items. No one could compare to him in the limelight. Of course, coming from Lord Chunshin's mouth, these words had a different meaning. Ouyang Shaw smiled slightly, clearly seeing through Lord Chunshin's intentions. Things don't happen more than 3 times. This time, I'm here to watch the battle. Presumably, I'll be able to see the glory of China's wealthiest person. At least you have some self-awareness. Lord Chunshin said, beautiful words, but you're just admitting defeat. Suddenly, a player behind Lord Chunshin opened his mouth to speak. Hearing this, Ouyang Shaw's eyes turned cold. Haha, just a joke, just a joke. Although the other party said this, his face had an undisguised ridicule. Ouyang Shaw naturally would not bicker with a nameless person. He said to Lord Chunshin, then let me congratulate you in advance for being able to recoup the returns of this investment. Don't waste your efforts. Hearing this, Lord Chunshin's face instantly darkened. Clearly, using the opportunity of this limited exchange of achievement points, Lord Chunshin's clan had exchanged a large sum of gold coins and was prepared to go all out. To Lord Chunshin, the pressure on his shoulders was even greater. The auction this time was a warm-up. In the previous 2 auctions, Lord Chunshin had obtained inside information and prepared sufficient funds in advance. Unfortunately, both were ruined by Ouyang Shaw. How could he not harbor a grudge? Being at the door, he naturally had to be sarcastic. Ouyang Shaw saw through Chun Shi's intentions with a single glance, and he paid no further attention to Chun Shi before directly entering the auction house. Looking at Ouyang Shaw's back, Lord Chunshin's face no longer had that playful smile. All that remained was seriousness. It was obvious that his performance had failed. Could it be that this guy has some secret funds? With these thoughts in mind, Lord Chunshin followed them into the auction house. Before the auction had even begun, a storm was already brewing. Wui here. However, Bai Hua was a step ahead and called Ouyang Shaw over. It had become a custom for the members of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas to gather at every auction. Not even the capital auction house dared to offend the League of Mountains and Seas. Therefore, the number 1 room on the 2nd floor was reserved for them. However, Bai Hua's shout instantly alarmed the entire auction hall. Unlike previous years, a portion of the players no longer looked at Ouyang Shaw with fear in their eyes. Instead, they looked eager to give it a try. Clearly, the reality exchange introduced by Gaia was very popular, because this was the only time such an exchange event would take place. It was likely that a considerable portion of the players would choose to take the risk out of desperation. Of course, the most terrifying thing was not the individuals, but the big powers and guilds. They had many members, and as long as each person exchanged 1 or 2,000 gold coins, they would be able to raise a huge amount of funds. Lin Jing had already revealed to Ouyang Shuo in advance that the funds raised by Snow Rose this time would be as much as several million gold coins. This was the result of the majority of the members keeping the funds in their own hands. When Ouyang Shuo heard this, he felt a little dizzy. In comparison, Shanghai City had suddenly become a pauper. Of course, no one would use all the funds they had exchanged in one go. Otherwise, it would really be like drinking poison to quench thirst. Anyone who had a little understanding of economics would know that once such a huge amount of funds suddenly flowed into the market, it would cause inflation. If that happened, the gold coins they had exchanged would plummet by more than 10 times. No one will do such a fool. Generally speaking, players would save up their funds for the next few years. Everyone knew that the later stages of the game, the more funds they would need. At the beginning of a year in Gaia, Ouyang Shuo had 100 gold coins on him and was already a huge fortune. By now, who didn't have hundreds or thousands of gold coins in their hands? The reason was that the increase in the production of gold coins in the game had caused a certain amount of inflation. Secondly, the higher the level of the items in the game, the rarer they were, the more expensive they were. When Ouyang Shuo heard this, he had an idea. Obviously, Ouyang Shuo had found a business opportunity in this limited-time exchange. If he could absorb the funds of the players into the Bank of the Four Seas, then it would be a great opportunity for the bank. For this reason, Ouyang Shuo had specially looked for the manager of the Bank of the Four Seas, Meng Jida, and mentioned this matter. Meng Jida had already started the specific evaluation. When Ouyang Shuo walked into the number 1 private room, almost everyone was present. It seemed that he had been delayed when he was browsing the stalls. After a while, the auction officially began. Different from last year, this time the auction had canceled the auction and directly entered the competition for the top 10 items. Obviously, Gaia also knew that there were many rich people participating in this auction. The eyes of these rich people were naturally locked onto the top 10 items that they were looking forward to the most. As for ordinary items, there were many of them in the auction house's monthly auctions, so there was no need to waste time on such an occasion. Just like in the past, the number 1 auctioneer of the Jingdu auction house danced up the stage. 10 beauties stood in a row behind the auctioneer, each holding a tray covered with a red silk cloth. After a simple introduction, the auction began. "Let's begin the auction of the first item," the auctioneer said with a smile. The first beauty walked up and lifted the red silk cloth on the tray, revealing a treasured sword. This is the Tai sword of the 10 famed swords. It's also a sword of prestige, ranked 4th among the 10 famed swords. The starting price is 53,000 gold coins, and there's no fixed price. "Please make your bids," the auctioneer introduced. As soon as the auctioneer finished speaking, the entire crowd went into an uproar. Gaia was determined to let the players compete for the item, so they didn't follow the usual practice of setting a fixed price. This meant that there was no upper limit to the price of the item. Even Ouyang Shuo didn't expect Gaia to be so generous this time. The first item was a divine armament of the 10 famed swords. The atmosphere of the auction house immediately boiled up. The investors were eager to give it a try, vowing to win the first bid. Chapter 569. The starting bid set by Gaia for the Tai sword was the same price that Lin Jing paid for the 7-star Dragon's Abyss last year. 55,000 gold coins, 65,000 gold coins, 85,000 gold coins, 100,000 gold coins. In less than 10 minutes, the price of the Tai sword had risen to 100,000 gold coins. What was even more strange was that none of the big shots had spoken up until now. In other words, 100,000 gold coins was just a warm-up. Further up, it was time for the big shots to compete. 150,000 gold coins. The faction master of crisscrossing sword energy, one sword from the west, was the first to break the silence. He immediately raised the price by 50,000 gold coins. Immediately, the group of ordinary players was blocked outside the door. 200,000 gold coins. The bidder was the old rival of one sword from the west, Thunderous Sword Chi, the head of the rain-savoring tower. One sword from the west saw this, and cast a glance at sword chi thunderous sound from afar. A hint of bitterness and sorrow flashed across his cold face. Unexpectedly, he gave up bidding again. The 10 famed swords were most suitable for swordsmen. One sword from the west and thunderous sword aura were the most famous pair of swordsmen in the game. Unfortunately, both of them were in charge of a major guild. As such, the two of them could be considered as the strongest contenders for the Tai sword. One sword from the west forfeited in advance, naturally, to fulfill the sword chi thunderclap. From the looks of it, the two of them still had feelings for each other. It's really a sadomasochism. Ouyang Shuo tilted his head and glanced at Sword Chi Lane, who was also in the heavenly box number 1 because he belonged to the alliance of mountains and seas. However, he could not see any expression on his face. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. After one sword from the west gave up, thunderous Sword Chi seemed determined to win. 250,000 gold coins. At this moment, another person suddenly appeared to disrupt the situation. It was the Alliance Master of the Star Alliance, the Dust of Star. Obviously, as the descendant of a hidden family, Star Zhichun was also very wealthy. Although the development of the Star Alliance in the capital was far below the expectations of the Dust of Stars, it could be considered to have gained a foothold with the support of the family. Since the Dust of Star had already appeared, he probably had even greater ambitions. Dust of the Celestial Star's profession was the hidden profession of the China server, Chi cultivator. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be much demand for the Tai sword, so it was inexplicable why he would step forward to bid for the Tai sword. Seeing this, Sword from the West narrowed his eyes. Speaking of which, the two of them were actually allies. The disruption caused by the Dust of Star clearly displeased one sword from the west. Even Di Chun couldn't help but frown when he saw this. He's really hopeless. The fact that the Star Alliance was able to gain a foothold in the capital was inseparable from the full support of the crisscrossing sword aura. Otherwise, the Shadow Alliance and Dream House, which were secretly supported by Shanghai City, would have devoured them without leaving any bones behind. At this critical juncture, the Dust of Celestial Star had gone to provoke one sword comes West's old lover. Did he have nothing better to do? Di Chun shook his head and began to weigh the pros and cons for the first time. 300,000 gold coins. Clearly, Thunderous Sword Aura was not one to admit defeat. As soon as the words were spoken, the entire auction hall burst into an uproar. No one had expected that the first item to be auctioned would exceed the 300,000 gold coins mark. Seeing this, Ouyang Shuo basically gave up on the idea of picking up the leftovers. He was afraid that this auction was really just a sideshow. Although they were both from the Yan Huang Alliance, the Dust of Star did not sit in the same box as Di Chun and the others. Instead, he arrogantly booked a box of his own. At this moment, in box number 4, an interesting conversation was taking place. Young master, enough is enough. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man sitting behind the Dust of Star. Let me play for a while more. The Dust of Star's lips curled into a playful smile. He was certain that Thunder Sword Chi would follow up, which was why he was so fearless. His goal was to trick Sword Chi Lane. Only a perverted person like him would do such a thing that harmed others without benefiting himself. 350,000 gold coins. As expected, the Dust of Star made another bid. 400,000 gold coins. The Sword Chi Thunder's temper was aroused. At this moment, the entire hall suddenly fell silent. It was exceptionally strange. No one had expected that the first item would be sold for such a sky-high price. The guild was rich, but money wasn't waste paper. It couldn't afford to spend like this. A single divine weapon cost 400,000 gold coins. One could imagine what kind of pressure Thundersword Chi would have to face in the guild. After the dust settled, the Tai sword officially returned to Thundersword Chi. The auctioneer was clearly very satisfied with the first item. He smiled as he unveiled the second item. It was a small talisman. Bean Army Talisman. Once used, one can summon 50,000 elite troops for half a day. The starting price is 60,000 gold coins, and there is no fixed price. Please make your bid. The auctioneer said. The entire hall was filled with the sound of people drawing in cold breaths. Gaia really didn't play by the rules this time. The first two items were both rare treasures. Even legendary items had appeared in the game. In an instant, the eyes of all the Lord-level players in the hall burned with passion. According to the system's definition, the average rank of an elite troop had to be at least the 7th rank. In the current player territories, there were no more than 3 figures who could reach this standard. 50,000 such elite troops were enough to decide the outcome of a war. What was more frightening was that these 50,000 troops could be summoned at any time and could catch the enemy off guard. If used well, they could achieve twice the result with half the effort. It was no wonder that these 50,000 elites could only last half a day. Otherwise, it would be too heaven-defying. Even so, it was still a divine item that was worth sacrificing everything for. 200,000 gold coins. As expected, the bid immediately made the other Lord-level players forget about it. 250,000 gold coins. 300,000 gold coins. The auction price rose at a terrifying speed. It was almost certain that the Tai sword would break the auction record. 400,000 gold coins. The one who made the bid was none other than the wealthiest Lord Chunshin. There was a hint of passion in his eyes. When Ouyang Shua saw this, he exchanged a glance with Bai Hua and muttered, "He's determined to get it." Just in time, Bai Hua said. Ouyang Shua nodded and turned his head to look at the auction hall. 450,000 gold coins. Wandering Huan followed suit. Ouyang Shua even noticed that Wandering Huan had secretly exchanged glances with Xiongba before he made his offer. Chapter 570. Ouyang Shua noticed the actions between Wandering Huan and Xiongba. Lord Chunshin, who was in the same room as them, naturally also noticed it. He could not help but frown. Is there a need for us to kill each other internally? Lord Chunshin casually glanced at Wandering Huan, then turned his gaze towards Xiongba. Wandering Huan was only from a small family. He would definitely not be able to accomplish anything in this limited time exchange. To have such a large amount of funds, it was definitely because of Xiongba's support. Even the alliance that Wandering Huan had organized to attack Zhang Chu had a shadow of Xiongba behind them. Lord Chunshin was well aware of this. Therefore, he directly bypassed Wandering Huan and found Xiongba. Seeing this, Wandering Huan's face twitched imperceptibly. This feeling of being completely ignored, no one would feel good. No need. Xiongba nodded his head. Hearing this, Lord Chunshin's face lit up. He thought that Xiongba would compromise. Although he was somewhat surprised, Lord Chunshin felt that it was natural. After all, from Lord Chunshin's perspective, Xiongba would not completely break off relations with him because of Wandering Huan. Who would have thought that Xiongba's following words would drag Lord Chunshin into the abyss? Since you are of such noble character and unquestionable integrity, then I will thank you in advance. Xiongba gave Lord Chunshin a glance, a smile that was not a smile, full of ridicule. It was as if he had defeated Lord Chunshin. Lord Chunshin's expression instantly became unsightly. Then let's compete, Lord Chunshin said coldly. From this moment onwards, the conflict between the two within the alliance could no longer be resolved. Di Chan sat at the side, silent. The expression in his eyes was also abnormally complicated. Although the Yin-Huang alliance had signs of rising again, the internal division was further aggravated. No one knew how long the entire alliance could last. Taking advantage of this limited time exchange, Lord Chunshin would definitely rise again within the alliance. But no matter if it was Di Chun or Xiongba, they were not willing to be under someone else. The existence of these three was enough to drag the alliance into an unknown situation. The cooperation between strong people was like this. One had to learn the art of compromise. Otherwise, one would be badly bruised. In this aspect, the young masters of aristocratic families were still a far cry from their parents' generation. The major families were also using this opportunity to train their next generation. More importantly, in order to maintain the stability of the alliance, they had to have a leader. However, Ever since Di Qin's death, the Yin-Huang alliance had been without a leader for a long time. The atmosphere in Tianzi's room number 2 suddenly became strange. The auction was still going on. 550,000 gold coins. Lord Chunxin directly quoted a price that made people despair. No matter how miraculous the Scattering Beans army talisman was, 550,000 gold coins were more than enough. 560,000 gold coins. Wandering Huan, or rather, Xiongba, accepted the challenge without any stage fright. 580,000 gold coins. Lord Chunxin did not hesitate at all. 590,000 gold coins. 600,000 gold coins. Finally, Lord Chunxin once again pushed the price to a new peak. The atmosphere in the auction hall froze as the two bosses of the Yin-Huang alliance battled. Seeing Wandering Huan once again open his mouth to bid, the battle wolf that sat in the room, who had not spoken all this time, suddenly spoke. "Brother Xiongba, let's stop here. There's no need to be like this." At this time, the only one that could stop the internal strife of the Yin-Huang alliance was the battle wolf that had always remained neutral. As for Di Chun, he had a long history of grievances with Lord Chunxin and Xiongba. At this time, he was in no position to speak. As expected, seeing that the battle wolf had spoken, Xiongba's expression also became serious. In the battle of annihilating the Huang Chao rebel army, Xiongba and the battle wolf had a period of close cooperation. The territories of the two families were adjacent. There would be many opportunities for cooperation in the future. Therefore, towards the proposal of the battle wolf, Xiongba naturally needed to seriously consider. Adding on the price of Lord Chunxin, it was already close to his bottom line. Seeing this, Xiongba nodded to Wandering Huan. He was indeed an ambitious person, able to pick up and let go. Seeing this, the battle wolf also smiled in satisfaction. Evidently, Xiongba gave him face, making the battle wolf feel extremely honored. This good show of internal strife came to an abrupt end. Among them, the most disappointed was probably Di Chun, who had not said anything. Time was limited, and the third item was quickly unveiled. It was a book. I Jin Jing, the top emperor-level inner force mantra, has the miraculous effect of changing one's muscles and cleansing one's marrows. The starting price is 50,000 gold coins. There is no fixed price. Please bid. The auctioneer introduced. As long as it was a player in the China region, there was no one who did not know the name of the Yi Jin Jing. Needless to say, whether it was adventure-type players or lord players, they all had an expression of eagerness on their faces. A top emperor-level inner force mantra like this could only be encountered by chance, not sought. To be able to obtain one, it was enough for one's life. Especially for players, this kind of genuine inner force mantra that could be directly used in the real world was even more so. The earlier they practiced, the earlier they would be one step ahead. Ouyang Shuo obtaining the Yellow Emperor's inner force could be said to be a blessing from the heavens. Just by practicing this mantra, his personal authority had increased by a full 2 levels. If this were to spread, a large number of people would probably die of jealousy. It could be said that no one could resist the temptation of the Yi Jin Jing. In the number 1 skybox, Lin Jing was the most excited. Ever since he obtained the 7-star Dragon's Well, Lin Jing had been working hard for a top-notch mantra. Among the Soar mantras, there was already a king-level Soar mantra that he could use for the time being. Right now, Lin Jing was lacking such a top-notch inner force mantra. When Bing drew the Immaculate Heart Sutra during the Spring Festival last year, the one who was most envious and jealous was her aunt. Therefore, Lin Jing was determined to get it at this moment. After all, in terms of financial resources, Snow Death Rose was one of the best, even among the major guilds. Even Sword Chi Thunderclap, who had just won the bid for the Tai sword, was moved. Her idea was exactly the same as Lin Jing's. Other than that, the 3 big bosses of the guilds, Bright Moon Illuminates the River, Shadow Fox, and Dream Cloud Swallowing Top, were also eager to try. On the other hand, the leader of the guilds, Love Thread, was somewhat indifferent. As for the lords like White Birch, Dragon Seeking Point, and Siege Lion, they were powerless. Like Ouyang Shuo, they could only look on enviously. They were destined to participate in the auction this time, and it would be difficult for them to achieve anything. It was the same for Feng Xiuhuang, who had lost the support of her family. It could be said that the third system auction was destined to be a battle between the major guilds and the major families. Everyone else, including Ouyang Shuo, could only be reduced to spectators. Chapter 571. Unsurprisingly, the muscle tendon changing scripture set off a new wave of bidding. 60,000 gold coins, 150,000 gold coins, 250,000 gold coins, 300,000 gold coins. 10 minutes. In just 10 minutes, the price had soared to 300,000 gold coins. Gaia's base price had no value at all. The first two bids were the only benchmark for players to bid. 400,000 gold coins. Lin Jing finally made a bid. It was the same price as the Tai Yi sword, reaching the first hurdle. The entire auction hall came to a standstill. A little bit later, an even bigger wave was set off. 400,000 gold coins was not enough to scare them off. There were only 10 items to be auctioned in the annual auction. It was considered lucky to get even one. Therefore, all the big shots who were prepared would not miss a single opportunity. 420,000 gold coins. 450,000 gold coins. The players' bids were still soaring. They had no intention of stopping. Finally, a hint of seriousness flashed across Lin Jing's face. She did not expect the muscle tendon changing scripture to cause such a frenzy. Everyone in the hall seemed to have gone mad. They could not help but wonder if Gaia had put the best auction items in the front. Everyone was full of energy. 600,000 gold coins. Lin Jing's second bid was the same as the final price of the Magic Bean Talisman. She wanted to use this strategy to force some people to back off. At the same time, she also wanted to use this opportunity to show all potential competitors that she was determined to get the muscle tendon changing scripture. As expected, after Lin Jing made her bid, all the players became cautious. Even for a big guild, 600,000 gold coins was not a huge sum of money that could be easily spent. Moreover, it was only an internal cultivation technique that could only be practiced by one person. No one could really spend the guild's public funds as they pleased. Lin Jing's bid of 600,000 gold coins was close to the limit of the guild funds that she could use. Last year, she had spent a huge sum of money to bid for the 7-star Dragon Well, which had already caused quite a stir in the guild. Fortunately, Ouyang Shuo had opened Cliff Mountain City to the public, and Lin Jing had gone through a series of operations to eliminate the negative effects. Everyone was paying close attention to the auction record that Lord Chunshin had just set. Would he break it again? Outside the Jingdu auction house, this grand auction was also being broadcasted in real time. When Lin Jing made another bid of 600,000 gold coins, the entire Central Street was in an uproar. The exclamations of the players gathered together like an avalanche. To these ordinary players who worked hard to set up their stalls, 600,000 gold coins was an astronomical figure. Everyone was witnessing a legend of wealth. 650,000 gold coins. Myths were meant to be broken. The bidder was unexpectedly Lord Chunshin, who had just won the Scattering Beans Army Talisman. This was beyond everyone's expectations. Lord Chunshin's wealth completely intimidated the group of people. Even Ouyang Shuo could not help but glance at the second room next door. This time, Lord Chunshin's family had steeled their hearts. They were going to make a huge gamble in the game. 700,000 gold coins. Before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. Lord Chunshin had just called out a price when a third person once again broke it. He increased the price by another 50,000 gold coins. The charm of the muscle tendon changing scripture was beyond imagination. The bidder this time was also a member of the Yanhuang Alliance. It was Feng Qingyang. No one was surprised by this. Feng Qingyang was famous for being a martial arts fanatic. It was already surprising that he had given up on the Tai sword. Feng Qingyang did not care about giving up on the muscle tendon changing scripture. This was because even the best internal energy cultivation technique of his family could not be compared to the muscle tendon changing scripture. More importantly, Feng Qingyang had already found out that the muscle tendon changing scripture had a hidden characteristic. It could greatly increase the attributes of a player's root bone. To Feng Qingyang, who was dedicated to martial arts, there was nothing more important than the muscle tendon changing scripture. It was precisely because of this that he had given up on the Tai sword long ago. Of course, this also had to do with the fact that the Tai sword was not compatible with Feng Qingyang's swordsmanship. Among the 10 famous swords, Feng Qingyang was most interested in the shadow-bearing sword, which was ranked last. The shadow-bearing sword was a sword with shadow and incorporeal forms. It was the most unpredictable, seeing that the price of the muscle tendon changing scripture had soared to 700,000 gold coins. Lin Jing and Xiesian looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They had given up on the competition. Lin Jing was not a willful person. It was not that they could not afford 700,000 gold coins, but it was not worth it. Moreover, to Lin Jing, the muscle tendon changing scripture was not the most suitable internal energy cultivation technique. There was no need for him to walk down this path to the end. On the other hand, Lord Chunshin's expression was somewhat thought-provoking. If it had been someone else who had made the bid, Lord Chunshin would have increased the price without hesitation. However, it was Feng Qingyang who had made the bid. Feng Qingyang could be considered as one of Lord Chunshin's more reliable allies within the Yanhuang alliance. The problem was that Lord Chunshin also desired the muscle tendon changing scripture very much. Martial arts was not Lord Chunshin's pursuit. Practicing an internal energy cultivation technique like the muscle tendon changing scripture was very suitable for Lord Chunshin to strengthen his body. Coupled with the fact that he had ample funds, it would be difficult for him to give up. Everyone was waiting for Lord Chunshin to make another bid. Lord Chunshin was not the only one who had not given up on the muscle tendon changing scripture. The others were merely observing the battle between Lord Chunshin and Feng Qingyang before making their move. Only the auctioneer was counting down according to the rules of the auction house. 700,000 gold coins, going once. Lord Chunshin did not respond. His expression was somewhat unfathomable. 700,000 gold coins, going twice. Lord Chunshin raised his head, glanced at Feng Qingyang, and opened his mouth to speak. The gazes of the entire audience converged on box number 2. Looking at his expression, Lord Chunshin was about to make his move. The other players were gearing up for battle, preparing for the final battle. 700,000 gold coins, going thrice. At this moment, the auctioneer banged the gavel. Unexpectedly, Lord Chunshin did not make a bid and directly gave up on this battle. The entire audience was in an uproar. Some people finally reacted. They were afraid that they had been tricked by Lord Chunshin. Perhaps, when the auctioneer first called out a bid, Lord Chunshin was indeed hesitating. But on the second bid, Lord Chunshin had already decided to give up. At the same time, he had given Feng Qingyang a beautiful assist, allowing Feng Qingyang to bid for the muscle tendon changing scripture at the lowest price. At this moment, the big shots were extremely vexed. Unfortunately, the dust had already settled. Being tricked could only mean that they were too greedy. As for Feng Qingyang, he gave Lord Chunshin a brilliant smile. Chapter 572. Lord Chunshin was indeed a shrewd person. Between personal strength and the family's hegemony, he chose the latter. He gave up the muscle tendon changing scripture to win Feng Qingyang's friendship. This was not a bad deal. Lord Chunshin had clearly thought it through. This time, the family was going all out. He could not afford to be willful. All his actions had to serve the family's hegemony. As for his personal gains and losses, he could not care less. In the end, Feng Qingyang successfully won the muscle tendon changing scripture at the sky-high price of 700,000 gold coins. The first 3 items were each stronger than the last. The players' hearts could not take it. Finally, Gaia slowed down the pace of the auction. The 4th item was a substitute doll. In the first auction, Ouyang Shuo had won the substitute doll for 250 gold coins. At that time, the players had not realized the value of the substitute doll. Now, the substitute doll had become the top collector's item in the hands of the players. A treasure that could allow players to reincarnate without any damage became even more precious in the later stages of the game. The players could only feel at ease when they held a few substitute dolls in their hands. However, substitute dolls were extremely difficult to obtain. Only by going through a specific large-scale chain mission and putting a lot of effort could one obtain a substitute doll as a reward. According to incomplete statistics, in the second year of Gaia, the number of substitute dolls that appeared in China did not exceed 20. This showed how rare substitute dolls were. Therefore, although it did not trigger a bidding frenzy like the first 3 items, the substitute doll still caused an intense competition. In the end, it was successfully won by a player at the sky-high price of 200,000 gold coins. As a result, a new round of bidding frenzy for the substitute doll was launched. There was no doubt that in the third year of Gaia and beyond, more and more professional mission teams would be born. They would specialize in researching related chain missions to obtain substitute dolls and become rich. As long as one obtained one, becoming rich overnight would no longer be a fantasy. The auctioneer was still smiling brightly. His efficiency was abnormally high. Following that, the auction for the 5th item began. When the red cloth was removed, it was a simple and unadorned book. As long as it was a book, be it a martial arts manual or a technical manual, not a single item was lacking. The player's interest was piqued once again. Mongolian Cavalier Training Manual. Once you use it, you will obtain the full set of secret training techniques for Mongolian Cavaliers, and you'll be able to create a group of Mongolian elite Cavaliers in your territory. The starting price is 6,000 gold coins. There is no fixed price. Please bid, the auctioneer said. There were 2 ways to train a special force in a player's territory. First, the relevant generals could train themselves. For example, by Chi's personal guard, Iron Eagle Swordsman. Secondly, it was through the relevant training manuals. The Mongolian Iron Cavalry Training Manual belonged to this category. It was suitable for generals who lacked the necessary equipment. As long as they had the necessary equipment, even an ordinary general could be trained into a special soldier. Therefore, any lord with some knowledge would realize the value of this handbook. The lords of the north, in particular, had burning gazes. The lords of the south generally lacked good warhorses. If the warhorses could not compare to the Mongolian warhorses, then even if the cavaliers trained well, they would not be able to reach the fighting strength of the Mongolian elite cavaliers in history. Even in Shanghai City, the number of cyan beetle horses could not keep up with the expansion of the territory's cavalry. Ouyang Shuo had long been planning to find a new source of warhorses. It was a pity that he had little success. The northern territories were different. They were close to the Mongolian plains and could trade horses with the tribes there. At this time, the Mongolian plains had not yet welcomed that unparalleled king. The most intense bids came from the lords of the north. 120,000 gold coins, 250,000 gold coins, 400,000 gold coins. The price once again rose to a level that made the normal lords despair. The only ones who still had the strength to bid were Army Kill Ripper and Dichun. It was another internal PK within the Yin-Huang Alliance. In this auction, the Yin-Huang Alliance was in the limelight. Whether it was Army Kill Ripper's Azura City or Dichun's Handan City, they were not far from the Mongolian plains. Their desire for the handbook was naturally stronger, especially Army Kill Ripper. He had been silent for too long and was slowly fading out of the public eye. This auction might be an opportunity for him to rise again. Therefore, Army Kill Ripper ignored Dichun's gaze and continued to bid, showing that he wanted to fight with Dichun to the end. 450,000 gold coins. Army Kill Ripper yelled. Dichun's face was a little ugly. Due to other considerations, his family did not buy a lot of things, so he did not have as much money as the others. 500,000 gold coins. This was Dichun's limit. 550,000 gold coins. Army Kill Ripper was very confident. Seeing this, Di Chin's face was expressionless, as if he had given up. When the dust settled, Army Kill Ripper successfully won the Mongolian Iron Cavalry Training Manual. Perhaps it would not be long before a powerful cavalry was born in Azure City. In the blink of an eye, the auction was more than half done. Some people were happy, some were disappointed. The one who had the most profit was the Yin Huang Alliance, who had monopolized 3 items. The second half of the auction was destined to be even more bloody. After a short break, the show began again. The sixth beauty walked up and lifted the red silk cloth on the tray. It was another book, Glass Making Manual. After using it, you will be able to master the technique of glass making. The starting price is 40,000 gold coins. No fixed price. Please bid. The auctioneer introduced. Glass was not a modern material. It had existed since ancient times. It was just that in ancient times, it was very difficult to make glass. Glass had always been a luxury that could be compared to gold and gems, and only a few of the upper class could enjoy it. Gaia's products were naturally not ordinary. The method of making glass in the glass-making manual was better than the method of making glass in ancient China and was only slightly inferior to the modern method. Therefore, once a territory mastered this technique, it was equivalent to having another way to make money. The monopoly of technology was far stronger than the monopoly of funds. Therefore, for the lords who had a lot of money in their hands, they could use their funds to buy the glass-making manual and then open up a way to make money. There was no doubt that it was a very good investment. The value of gold coins was constantly depreciating, and the monopoly of technology was very difficult to break due to the limitations of the technology tree in the game. Therefore, even Ouyang Shuo was a little tempted. Unfortunately, he was powerless. Chapter 573. The Glass Manufacturing Technique Manual triggered a new round of bidding frenzy. In less than 20 minutes, the price had once again soared to 400,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shuo suspected that Gaia was using this auction to collect large amounts of gold coins. Other than the substitute doll, there was not a single item that was sold for less than 400,000 gold coins. It was truly terrifying. 550,000 gold coins. The one who bid was Xiongba, who had been silent all this while. This price was already close to the limit. Originally, Lord Chunshin wanted to fight for it. The problem was Xiongba had already taken a step back on the issue of the Magic Bean Army seal. If he continued to fight, it would be somewhat ridiculous. Finally, the Glass Manufacturing Technique Manual fell into Xiongba's hands. Yin Huang Alliance had won another round. The 7th item up for auction was a huge gem. Giant Space Stone. It can increase the storage space of the storage bag to 10,000 cubic meters. The starting price is 40,000 gold coins. No fixed price. Please bid. The auctioneer introduced. Ouyang Shuo's storage bag was made of a large space stone with a capacity of 1,000 cubic meters. This large space stone was just right for him. Thinking of the upcoming voyage plan, Ouyang Shuo was moved for the first time. Auntie, lend me 200,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shuo said. Lin Jing did not bid for the Yijin Jing, but she had ample funds. You want the space stone? Lin Jing asked Ouyang Shuo. That's right. Okay. Lin Jing was straightforward. Speaking of which, she had to borrow money from Ouyang Shuo to bid for the 7-star Dragon Abyss last year. It was not easy for Ouyang Shuo to open his mouth, so Lin Jing naturally had no reason to refuse. At this moment, the price had already soared to 200,000 gold coins. The higher the price, the more cautious the players became. After all, for the majority of the players, the large space stone was not necessary. Especially in the war, where the use of storage bags was prohibited, it further weakened the use of the storage bag. For the average player, a large or even medium-sized space stone was enough. Had it not been for the time limit, which had triggered a frenzy of gold coins, it would have been impossible for him to even reach 200,000 gold coins. Of course, there were still many who were willing to bid. Seeing this, Ouyang Shuo opened his mouth for the first time. 300,000 gold coins. In an instant, the entire auction site was stunned. It wasn't that the players were intimidated by Ouyang Shua's bid. Rather, this was the first time Ouyang Shua had ever made a bid. As the most dazzling existence in all the previous auctions, his every move was watched by everyone. Ouyang Shua's background was no longer a secret. A commoner player becoming the world's #1 lord had long since become an inspirational story on the forums, and he was worshipped by countless commoner players. Therefore, no one would say anything even if Ouyang Shua were to suffer a setback in this exchange. Shanghai City no longer needed to prove anything to the outside world. Its very existence was a powerful deterrent. It just so happened that Ouyang Shua still made a move. With regards to this, everyone chose to wait and see. Even Xing Zhichun, who loved to stir up trouble, and Lord Chun Xin, who harbored enmity towards Ouyang Shua, did not appear to stir things up. This was the general trend. In the end, Ouyang Shua successfully won the bid for the giant space stone. The 7th auction item could be said to be uneventful. Perhaps because of this, the auctioneer's next move simply turned the scene into a frenzied sea. The 8th and 9th beauties came out together and unveiled the mysterious auction items. They were a set of armor and a pair of boots. Whether it was the armor or the boots, the surface was overflowing with light. Knowledgeable people knew that this was the unique light of a divine artifact. Auctioning 2 divine artifacts at once, perhaps only Gaia had such boldness. The entire scene sucked in a breath of cold air. The central street outside, without waiting for the auctioneer's introduction, had already completely boiled up. The players' eyes were filled with greed. Divine artifacts, the players' ultimate pursuit of equipment. Seeing this, the auctioneer smiled and introduced. The armor is called the Golden Beast Cloud Devouring Armor, and the boots are called the Flowing Cloud Moon Chasing Boots. These 2 pieces of godly equipment are the 2 main parts of the godly equipment set, War Blood. The base price is 120,000 gold coins, and there is no fixed price. Please bid. This, Gaia's heroic spirit once again exceeded the players' expectations. It turned out to be a top-notch divine artifacts set. No wonder it was said to be auctioned as a package. If it was sold separately, the players would probably curse. As long as it was a set, in addition to the attributes of a single piece, there would be even more powerful set attributes. Collecting a set of divine artifacts could be said to be the ultimate pursuit of adventure-type players. Right now, there were 2 of them at once. Although the remaining parts, especially the core weapons, were probably extremely difficult to obtain, even so, it was enough to make the players crazy. All the big shots of the guild could no longer remain calm. On the other hand, the ordinary players completely gave up and didn't even have the interest to bid. 500,000 gold coins. Swallow Li San, the leader of the 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud, broke the silence and was the first to bid. As expected, the first bid made the ordinary players despair. This bid was destined to be a game between the big shots. The War Blood set was obviously only suitable for adventure-type players of the general profession. Swordsmen like One Sword from the West and Lin Jing were unwilling to wear such heavy armor. Swallow Li San was the most orthodox general, and he was also a knight general of the general branch. Naturally, he was very envious of the War Blood set. 600,000 gold coins. Dream Cloud, the leader of the One Dream Brothel, who was also a knight general, bid vaguely. Obviously, this auction was not entirely dominated by the top 10 guilds. 700,000 gold coins. Another person entered the competition for the War Blood set. It was Moon Illuminating the River. The Breeze Pavilion was mostly made up of strategists, but its leader, Moon Illuminating the River, was a general. He could be said to be an anomaly. 800,000 gold coins. Every time the price was raised, it would be at least 100,000 gold coins. This scene was enough to make people go crazy. This time, the bidder was the #1 adventure-type player in the China region, the leader of the Baleful Mercenary Group, the most powerful guild in China, Bloody Romance. Crimson Romance was also a general. 4 of the top generals in the China region entered the competition one by one. However, each of them had the support of a big guild. Even Bloody Romance didn't dare to say that he had a 100% chance of winning. Now it was up to who was willing to go all out. 900,000 gold coins. As expected, Swallow Lee San, who was the first to bid, chose to follow with no intention of giving up. The smell of gunpowder was getting stronger and stronger. Everyone held their breath, waiting to witness a historic moment. Chapter 574. Under everyone's gazes, the stunning number finally jumped out. 1,000,000 gold. The bidder was still Blood Romance. Seeing this, Moon Illuminates the River stiffened and took the initiative to back out. Apart from supporting the development of the guild, he also had to take care of Lingxi City, so he couldn't continue to gamble. 1,100,000 gold. Swallow Lee San gritted his teeth and chose to keep up. In the end, it was still a showdown between Blood Romance and Swallow Lee San. 1,200,000 gold. Blood Romance naturally had no reason to give up. 1,250,000 gold. Swallow Lee San's eyes were filled with a trace of struggle. Anyone could see that this round of bidding was close to his limit. Now it was time to see if Blood Romance would continue bidding. 1,350,000 gold. As expected of the number one player, Blood Romance raised the price by another 100,000 gold. Finally, Blood Romance said to Swallow Lee San from afar, "Brother Yin, this is my last bid." Obviously, Blood Romance also didn't want to continue bidding indefinitely. 1,350,000 gold was already a sky-high price. Even Lin Jing couldn't afford it. Bloodlust Mercenary Group truly had a deep foundation. Swallow Lee San sighed dejectedly when he saw this, and he unwillingly withdrew from this competition. In the blink of an eye, the auction came to an end. Finally, the mysterious veil of the finale was lifted. It was a talisman. Emperor Historical General Summoning Talisman. Once used, there is a 100% chance of summoning an Emperor Historical General. The starting price is 100,000 gold. There is no fixed price. Please bid. The auctioneer said. Summoning talismans were even rarer than substitute dolls. Not only was the Emperor's Summoning Talisman auctioned out an Emperor Summoning Talisman, but it was also a directional summoning talisman. After the baptism of War Blood, the players were much calmer towards the final item. The only ones who really wanted it were the lords. In other words, there were the territories that lacked a general who could take charge of an area on his own. Unfortunately, the lords that had the strength and money were all from Yan Huang Alliance. In Yan Huang Alliance, Di Chun had Lien Pe, Lord Chun Shun had Tian Dan, and Xiongba had Wu Qi. The Battle Wolves had Zhao Zhuang, so they weren't in a rush to recruit generals. As for Feng Qing, he had no intention of doing this. Thus, the one who truly desired this summoning amulet was Military Kill Ripper. Army Kill Ripper had just bought the Mongolian Iron Cavalier training manual, and he needed a general to lead this army. It was a pity that Military Kill Ripper was too unpopular within the Yan Huang Alliance, and no one gave way to him. Although Di Chun, Lord Chunshin, and the others already had famed generals in their territories, they did not mind adding one more. After all, compared to Shanghai City, their lineup of generals was truly shabby. After a round of bidding, Military Kill Break won the bid for the talisman at the price of 650,000 gold coins. The entire auction had officially come to an end. The 10 items were sold for a total of 5,250,000 gold coins. This year's auction was destined to be recorded in the annals of history and become a legend of wealth. After the auction ended, the auctioneer announced a shocking piece of news. As the saying goes, nothing should happen more than 3 times. This year's auction would be the last one held by the system in China. In the years to come, players would no longer be able to buy treasures like the ones displayed in the capital's auction. When everyone heard this, they all sighed deeply. Only Ouyang Shuo remained calm. As someone who had been reborn, Ouyang Shuo had already expected this. He also knew that in the 4th year of Gaia, although there would not be an auction in the capital, Gaia would organize a global auction to share this feast. At that time, players from all over the world would compete for the 10 treasures. Just thinking about it made one's blood boil. After setting a date for the Shanghai Alliance conference with Bai Hua and the others, Ouyang Shuo left the auction house. Of course, he did not leave the capital. Now that he was in the capital, Ouyang Shuo naturally had to talk to his two allies, Shadow Fox and Dream Clouds. The location of the meeting was the Shanghai city office in the capital. The three of them discussed for an entire afternoon before going their separate ways. That night, Ouyang Shuo left the capital and returned to Shanghai city. The next day, after half a month of discussion and deliberation, the Southern Border Protectorate's new restructuring plan was officially announced. It signified that the governance system of the territory had been upgraded. The entire plan involved three major adjustments. First, it would be upgraded to four major bureaus. The Administrative Bureau, the Interior Bureau, the Finance Bureau, and the Military Bureau would all be upgraded to general bureaus. There was a practical reason behind the name change. First, the Interior Bureau would have the Science, Education, and Health Bureau, and the Military Bureau would have the War Readiness Bureau. It was inevitable that there would be some confusion in the names, so it was not easy to clearly define the relationship between the two. After being upgraded to general bureaus, there would be no such trouble. Second, the structure of the three levels of government offices, except for the Military Bureau, was basically based on the structure of the Southern Border Protectorate. Thus, it was impossible to clearly define and maintain the absolute authority of the four bureaus of the Southern Border Protectorate. After the upgrade, the four general bureaus of the Southern Border Protectorate would become a unique existence. The four bureaus were upgraded and their names changed, but the official position of the chief officer remained the same. He was still called the chief officer. Ouyang Shuo had thought of calling him a minister. Unfortunately, although the Southern Border Protectorate had the authority to establish its own headquarters, it could not appoint ministers. In private, Xiao He and the others had already crossed the line by calling themselves ministers. In an official position, Ouyang Shuo naturally did not dare to step over the line and give others a chance to speak. Only after the country was established could it be truly established. Second, it was to expand the four bureaus. After the destruction of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, the territory would have 7 counties. The Southern Border Protectorate's previous structure of 4 bureaus and 17 departments was no longer enough to maintain the governance of the territory. Take the Office of Examination under the Administrative Bureau as an example. According to Ouyang Shuo's original plan, the Office of Examination was the core department responsible for governing the territory. In reality, the Office of Examination was only responsible for assessing the performance of the territory's officials. It was far from the true governance of the territory. Ouyang Shuo's previous reorganization of the territory's governance had forced him to send out a higher-ranked Administrative Bureau chief. This was how it was. If the Office of Examination was expanded, there would be no need to worry. The same situation was happening in the Education, and Health Bureau. Ouyang Shuo wanted to reform the basic public services of the territory, and the Office of Examination could not handle it. He could only temporarily upgrade the Office of Examination. There were many similar administrative problems. Thus, the expansion of the 4 bureaus was imperative. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.